Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming today. This is the Swanee River Water Management District Governing Board meeting and public hearing. We are on YouTube at www.youtube.com/SRWMD. It's August 13th, 2024, 9 a.m. And if everybody would rise and we will say our invocation and pledge.
Father God, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for your mercy and your grace. Thank you for the rain. Father, we pray for those that were in the path of the storm that received damage or harm. Father, I ask that you would lift them up, give them strength. Father, I pray for this staff and this board. We look at the business before us today, that you'll give us the guidance and the wisdom to protect the natural resources you've blessed us with. Father, we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Ms. Robin, would you like to do our roll call?
Chair Johns,
Here?
Mr. Keith,
Here.
Mr. Schwab,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Sessions, Mr. Thompson,
Here.
Mr. Lloyd.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe one member is just going to be a tad late. He had an appointment this morning, but he'll be coming later. Are there any amendments to our agenda?
Supplemental page 1, Business and Community Services, Water Use Permit 2-079-218544-9, Blue Triton Madison, authorization of water use for emergency circumstances.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
Made that motion, Madam Chair.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Okay, at this time, we're going to open the floor for public comment. And I've got a couple here that would like to speak. William Minor. There. Got one more? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. William Minor, he must have stepped out. Well, set him right there. Norman Leonold, did I do that right? Norman? Yes, sir. Would you like to come up and speak? Okay.
Everybody doing?
Doing good. How about you?
A little wet.
Yes, sir. We all are.
I've got a pile of information here, and my biggest concern right now is our floodways. That's my biggest concern. On blockages and what we're going to do to stop it, to open those up. That's my biggest concern.
And just if you don't mind me asking a question, are there specific floodways that you're referencing that you've,
Over in
okay?
Greenville, Florida, and they're right on the edge of the Osceola River, coming off of Gum Creek and the Little Osceola River. And there was extensive engineering done over there many, many, many years ago. And what has happened is one of the major floodways that takes that water out, actually more than one, several, for miles, is blocked with trees, sand, debris. It's washed down the road, and this has been going on for years over there, but it's never been, really addressed. A lot of things is it's on private property, those floodways go through private property. And I've dealt with one of your guys, Ben. I met Mr. Thomas, and I got one question for you guys. Because those floodways are on private property, whose responsibility is to keep those floodways clear? Especially after storms. Many years of storms
Yes, sir.
have blocked those floodways and those watershed areas. How do we go about that?
I don't have an answer for you right now.
You didn't
'cause,
either.
So
Other
We
than it
would-
was on private property.
and that makes it a little tougher. Yes, sir. we would certainly like to look into that. And yes, please.
Mr. Leonard, relative to the blocks, what we have done through the county, the county obtains easements from those property owners for maintenance floodways. We have been fortunate, we've been able to help fund some of that work. We've also helped some of the counties apply for federal funding to do that work as well.
Okay, how do we push those people just a little bit further?
Given the circumstances that are underway today over there in your area, this may be a wake-up call for a lot of folks.
I had the pleasure of meeting 2 FEMA personnel on Sunday, early in the morning. I was down there with poles and clearing 4 36-inch culverts that have been recently replaced from debris, okay? And they just happened to pull up as I was crawling out of that hole with water moccasins and alligators hanging off of me.
It's,
And I had the pleasure of them coming to my property, taking some pictures and taking a look around
good. I mean, that's
And,
the kind of
they were
documentation
taking
we
an
need for
assessment
this.
on Sunday. Let me ask you something. Now, Madison got declared a disaster area by FEMA?
I believe they did, yes,
It was
sir.
yesterday, right?
I'm not sure if it was yesterday or last week.
My biggest concern is that flood water getting out of those holes
Mhm.
where they're supposed to go.
I understand.
And any help I can be, topographical maps,
I've got your number.
yeah, but I need it done.
Understood.
You gotta have something done over there. 'Cause
Yes, sir.
I've got photographs that show the water's backed up. Backed up. Hold on.
You got,
I'm not gonna show you right now. 6 feet.
I can believe it. If you look at the
No, but
rain
it-
data since November of last year,
Yeah.
y'all have gotten over a year's worth of rain in that period of
Yeah,
time.
well, the blockages is what's keeping the water.
Yes, sir.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
I thank you.
Madam Chair, just to clarify something, because I'm kind of curious about this too. But is the initiation point the county for that? Okay, so I think for clarification purposes, the county commission is going to need to initiate with the district in coordination with FEMA or whoever to try to get
Well, we
that
might have
done.
that opportunity. I'm not representing the county.
No, but for your purpose, you know, you're here before us today voicing your concerns, and we appreciate it.
Board meeting.
But the county is going to have to initiate the project in order for it to be funded. So is that correct?
Yes, sir. And I believe Tim's going to give a little bit of an update at the beginning of his session. We actually met with the county and some of the state legislators yesterday.
Okay.
Let me add one more thing. I've done an extensive amount of research on our system. We live inside a what's classified, because I got all the permits that were issued to the county years ago, going back almost 20 years. Almost. It's like 19 years. When they originally cleared these, got the water to go through this system like it's supposed to. The research that I've done, and I've got old photographs that go all the way back to 1954, that show drainage ditches and holding areas and this, that, and the other, and the watersheds. One thing that struck me very bad, 2 things. The Osceola River crossing on Highway 221 is supposed to be a monitoring station for the water. Gum Creek is supposed to be a monitoring station for the water, floodwater level, and the amount of water going through that river. According to the USGS site, there is none. Now, one other thing. Topographicals of the land of the height are off by 3 to 7 feet. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, sir. And we'll, Tim, you can give us a little bit more information a little later on would be helpful also. Let's see here. Let me try one more time for William Minor. Okay. Mr. Hutton, you would like to, yes?
Is your name William?
Oh, sorry, I missed you. Okay. I'll speak up.
My name's William Minor. I live at 1576 8 128th Plaza in Live Oak. And I've had a flood that we had, all the rain. But it affected me because it went into my house, went around my house. It was a moat completely around. In my living room and my kitchen, there was 19 inches of water that was setting in there. My air conditioning was completely under water. My garage had 2 foot of water. In the barns, it was something like 3-4 foot. And I even had horses. I went out there before the rain was even over with, and let them off, and it was up to their bellies in the lean-to where I had them, and they went for a high ground, to get away from it. But I have a problem that I don't have a wetland. I don't have where there's supposed to be drainage coming down like that. And I got a 3.5 to a 4 acre lake sitting out there in back of me, around my house and stuff. And it's going to take a long time to go down. Can you send somebody out to kind of assess what can be done so that doesn't happen again?
To say it won't happen again, I don't know what your land looks like, if it's in a low area or if your land is in a low area where we had an awful amount of water that came down in a short period of time, and there are a lot of roads that were closed, and a lot of areas that had collected water because they were in a basin. There's no creek getting it out, or it just collects there. So I don't know your situation. Hugh, is there something that we can look at, or?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Minor, have you alerted the county to this?
I alerted the drainage board, and they come out and they said, well, yeah, you're flooded. Bye.
We can follow up. We've got
Yeah,
records. We can actually follow, and we may have already been out there to document the water levels. I'd have to look at the list. I think that's going to be reported on us.
A little water would be all right, but in the house it's not really good. And
No, sir.
not
It's
going
understandable.
down real fast. It's still got water in the house. And, since and it's been 5th that we had
Yes,
the
sir.
rainstorm. Last night, I think we had a little rain and it went up 1 inch, just over that rain. So I'm having a problem, and I like to see if it can be fixed, put it that way.
Okay. We appreciate your stating your address when we first started to comment, so that'll help us identify where that site is at.
Okay, all right. So, okay, is
All right, so
satisfied then?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Minor.
Thank you.
thank you. I have another card here, Ryan Smart. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning. I'm usually here representing my employer, but today I took the morning off to come over here to talk to you all as Ryan Smart, the person. I came to the MFL workshop a couple weeks ago here, and as I was walking in the door, one of the board members who's here today was in front of me, and he turned to the gentleman next to him and said, if it was up to the environmentalists, we wouldn't issue any permits. And the gentleman next to him said, they must not eat food? And he said, I guess not. About an hour later, I was sitting in the back of the room there during public comment, and a woman I invited here got up to speak. And she got up to say her experience is firsthand on her property watching the Santa Fe River decline because of overpumping. And a gentleman in the back of the room said, and I quote, we should burn down her house so she doesn't have to look at the river anymore. They laughed. This isn't a joke. I have seen people's homes burnt down in the Panhandle for taking public positions. And I know it's not your intention, but you have created an atmosphere here where environmentalists are the enemy. I can't invite people to these meetings anymore because I'm afraid they will be threatened and harmed. That is not okay. And I'm not going to say who the board member was, but I really would appreciate if you'd reach out because that's not true. No environmentalist has ever said you should deny every permit. That's not what we believe, and you should take the time to meet with us and find out what we actually do believe. Or just stop spreading lies and vilifying us, because it's going to get out of hand. It's absolutely going to get out of hand. So I hope you all will take this seriously. Imagine if an environmentalist got up here and threatened to burn down one of your homes for the things you said or did in this room. However you would treat that situation, that's how you should be treating this. And I haven't seen any action from staff. So I'm here today to ask you all, please do better. Like, you can do what you need to do, but if the rhetoric gets that hot that we have to have people being threatened to have their homes burned down because they talk about wanting to protect the river, we've kind of lost control here, guys. Right? We don't deny any permits in this building. Please do better.
Thank you. And I can assure you that is not the position of this board. I love environmentalists. They're the other part of helping us to protect our natural resources. And everybody has a dog in the fight. I mean, we're here to protect our natural resources. That is our mission, and it will continue to be so. And I can assure you, no one's house is going to get burned down. And I agree that rhetoric should not occur.
All due respect, man, you can't. I have seen someone's house burned down with their pets inside for taking a position in the Panhandle. So when you say that it can't happen, that's a problem, because I'm telling you it can. It really can.
Did you say one of this board was in the back of the room and one of the board members said
No, a
that?
board member was walking into the building with me.
No, the board member was in the back of the room and said that they wanted to burn the house down?
No, sir.
It was a staff member?
No, sir.
So who was it?
It was a member of the public.
But, well,
I don't know his name.
How does this board control the member of the public? How do we do that? It's very unprofessional that something like that was said.
I think
I know
I
it's
think
very
that when you-
I know it's very concerning to you, sir, about that right there. But this board handles itself, and our staff handles itself in the most professional way.
I think the comments like saying that environmentalists want to deny every permit, that we don't eat food, I think that adds to it. I think that is
That is somebody's opinion. And you know what? We have a right to. People in this country have a right to air their opinions.
Yep.
They do. And we're not going to stifle freedom of speech or anything like that right there. Now, I understand that the rhetoric needs to go down. I get that. And the tone in a lot of areas in this country need to go down. But let's put our big boy pants on, and let's be adults in the room and treat each other with respect and not accuse people on this board or in our staff of being intolerant or wanting to burn people's houses down. That is not what we do. And we seek, I promise you, this organization seeks diligently to bring both sides together. Believe me, I've had meetings out of my personal time as well. I understand you've taken your personal time today, and I've taken my personal time to have meetings with our staff and other people to come to an agreement to where we can meet the criteria of what the state says that we need to do. And that's the attitude of this organization and most of the people. Now, public, John Q. Public, I can't prevent them or do anything like that right there. And I understand that we have public meetings here and people have various opinions. And some people choose to be ignorant and some people choose to be fairly smart about things. I agree with that. But reality is this organization works very hard and diligently to bring both sides together to find common ground, to be able to solve issues that we all have to do with. And there's nobody wanting to burn anybody's house down around here.
Again, you say that, but I'm telling you what the gentleman said. And I'm telling you, I mean, you guys can just dismiss this. You can say you're great. That's fine. This is a reality that happened in your building. There's people that won't come to these meetings anymore because they feel threatened. And if that's not a problem to y'all, it should be. Like, I'm not the one who should be lectured here. You've never had an environmentalist come here and threaten any of you. Never threatened, but I've had thousands of people together. If anyone's ever had a threat, please let me know. We tell our people that is completely unacceptable. Completely. Right? We're here to protect the environment. We're here to deal with the economy and the culture of this area. There's no need for people's homes to be threatened. The fact that you would attack me over it, I think, is an that is the problem. Right? You have an environmentalist here telling you the truth. This happened. People are affected by it, and you want to attack me over it, sir.
I didn't attack you.
I did not say the things you said. I did not say your staff, any of the things you said about your staff.
You said our board member did it.
I did not. I said a board member, as I was walking in the building, said these exact words. If it was up to the environmentalists, we would deny every permit. And the gentleman next to him said, I guess they don't eat food. And he said, I guess not. An hour later, someone's threatening to burn down houses. If you don't see the connection there, sir, I don't know. But to me, it's pretty clear. There's no board member saying that, I mean, there is rhetoric. I hear it all the time. Personally, I get threats. It's fine. But this was a woman who came here, right, on a Tuesday morning to try to just speak about her experience at the river. She shouldn't be threatened. I don't think that should be a controversial thing to say. You're good people. I don't think you all are bad people. The staff is great. I have the utmost admiration for the staff. But this is a real problem. I'm not here accusing you all. I'm asking you all to do something. So please do. That's all. Thank you.
Yes.
Ryan, if you don't mind, for clarification, you mentioned that the board member came in with another gentleman, a member of the public. Was the member of the public the one, for your awareness, were they the one that made the comment about the house structure, or was that someone totally separate?
I could not. There was a comment to the right of me, to the right of time.
Would anybody else like to comment?
Well, I'm gonna just say one thing, and obviously the gentleman is passionate about what he does. But I had the same impression that he was attacking this board or something when he made his presentation. I'm glad that that was somewhat clarified. Now, if his anger is toward this board and staff for not policing the crowd, maybe at that point when it was happening, somebody should have brought something to somebody's attention where it could have been handled. We don't know who the person is, and I think he was just passionate about what happened, but it seemed to come to us for some reason. Not the impression I got, and I'm glad that Mr. Richard and Chair Johns had a little more conversation on it. I'm going to say, like Richard, I have never seen attitudes or activity like that in the building before. And I would encourage anybody at the meeting, if you hear something that you think is a threat to somebody or some organization, please report it. Let somebody know. Let security, we have security in the building. Let somebody know, and we will deal with it. Because like Mr. Richard said, people have a right to their opinion, and I won't violate that, but there's certain tolerances at a public meeting and certain rules that must be followed. But I'm certainly glad to hear it's all that wasn't voiced toward us. I was a little concerned with that, but I appreciate your passion. I do.
All right, that is, brings me to Katie Kelly. All right, let's see. Okay. Do you remember what item that was? Supplemental, okay.
It followed item 15.
All righty. Make a mark here just so I will not miss you. All right, and Mr. Hutton's item 17, correct? Do you want to wait till then? Okay, that sounds good. All right. Are there any other public comments today? All right, we will close public comment and move on to our consent agenda. Everyone has had time to go through that agenda list. And is there a motion?
Move, approve.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve our agenda, our collective consent agenda. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Next item is our hydrologic conditions report. Good morning.
Madam Chair, members of the board,
I bet you're going to tell us it rained.
hit the nail on the head, Madam Chair, absolutely.
I can.
Madam Chair, I have actually included some slides with the hurricane that came through, just as an FYI. But I did want to start out, Madam Chair, the hydro conditions report for July 2024 with this great photo that Lorna Radcliffe sent over to me. This is pre-flooding, because I know we're all kind of tired of seeing flooding photos right now. So this was taken earlier in July out at Suwannee Springs. You can see the spring house back here and one of the old bridge pilings behind the tree. Looks like it's a beautiful day out there. Nice photo. I want to thank Lorna for sending this over to me, and it's a great way to start our hydro report for July 2024. July 2024 rainfall, we had a district-wide average of about 7.5 inches. That just slightly under 0.2 of an inch, meeting that long-term average of 7.7 inches. With that, we actually ended up with a surplus of about 1/10 of an inch, a little over 1/10 of an inch. That's from a deficit that we had last month at the end of June of 1.4 inches. So moving that window forward, we lost the 6.02 inches that we had in July of 23, and picked up this 7.5 inches at the end of July 2024. Looking at the map, the 6 to 8 inch range encompasses that district-wide average for the month. Once again, this is very indicative of what we see thunderstorm-wise throughout our summers. Just everywhere you kind of see stuff pop up. You get more rain in certain areas than others. I did want to mention that the less than average amounts, 4 to 6 inches in dark blue, and then the less than 4 inches in light blue. We see a lot more of that kind of over in the western part and then even down into the southern part of our district. More of the rain kind of happened over in our eastern and kind of even down into the southern part. Whereas the higher than average amounts, the 8 to 10 inches, kind of all encompassing the district here, we had 10 to 12 inches in red, and then we had some areas of more than 12 inches of rainfall. Madison County, Hamilton County had a little bit just up north. Baker County, down into Union, Bradford, Alachua had just a little bit as well, and then a big area down in Levy County all saw more than 12 inches of rainfall for the month of July in certain spots. So this is the slide I was referring to, Madam Chair. This is the Hurricane Debbie rainfall. This was from August 4th and 5th, but really the rainfall was only about a 24-hour period, really, maybe just a little bit longer. From this, we got a district-wide average of 7.99 inches, basically 8 inches of rainfall for a district-wide average. Now, Debbie, of course, made landfall on the 5th as a Category 1 hurricane, around 80-mile-per-hour winds. This was over near Steinhatchee. I think it made landfall. But this is the total rainfall that we got per NexRad. You can kind of see the interesting pattern here. You can almost see the curving of the hurricane around the district, just with the rain patterns themselves. I thought that was really interesting. But the really high areas, of course, the 8 to 10 inches in orange, we see a lot of that in our central part of the district, even going from Dixie County up through Madison, Hamilton, Baker, Union, even down back into Levy. 10 to 12 inches is in red, a little bit more concentrated in the central part of our district, but we did see some of those areas down in Dixie and Levy. And then we had some more than 12 inches of rainfall in certain spots, large area of Suwannee County, little spot over here in Columbia, and then Madison County, of course, in that kind of southeastern corner, and then just over the river into Suwannee County as well. So lots of rainfall for this system for sure. And with that, this should be no surprise. This is our departure from normal precipitation from National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. All of our district has surpluses currently. The highest surplus is being in this purple color from Levy County up through Gilchrist, Columbia into Baker, and even into South Georgia. That represents 9 to 12 inches of surplus for the past 30 days. The blue part is 6 to 9 inches of surplus. A huge part of our district is showing that blue, but as you start to go west over into Jefferson County, even down into Taylor and a little bit of Madison County, you see that green, and that represents the 3 to 6 inch surplus in our district. So a lot of areas of Florida are actually seeing surpluses, and a lot of that has to be attributed to Hurricane Debbie coming through last week. Now, this is just for July, so this is stream flow conditions for July 2024. Beginning of the month, we saw most of our rivers in the normal, the 25th to 75th percentile to begin the month. But to end the month, it was a little bit different, and that's due to some more localized rainfall that we had. A lot of them ended in the above normal, that 75th to 90th, and that's a blue color. And then we had a few gauges that were in the high, that greater than 90th percentile. So Graham and New River on the Santa Fe were two of those. And then up in the Alapaha at Statenville, Alapaha at Jennings were both above 90th percentile to end the month. The only one that was kind of the anomaly was Fort White. it began and ended the month flow-wise in the below normal, in the 10th to 25th percentile. So we did, we began the month kind of in the normal, but we did increase in flows by the end of July. Now, this is current river level predictions. This is, from the National Weather Service page. What we have here, I wanted to show this just to kind of give an idea of where we are now. So these are all our Suwannee gauges, Withlacoochee, and then over into the Santa Fe. Really, we've got some areas of action stage, which is in yellow. The orange is minor flood. A lot of our gauges on the Suwannee are in minor flood, and also some over in the Santa Fe. We do have one moderate flood gauge currently that's predicted to be in moderate flood. That's over at Fort White on the Santa Fe. And then we also have one major flood. That's Three Rivers Estates over on the Santa Fe. Now, currently, how the trends are going is a lot of these up north in the northern part of the Suwannee are kind of, they've crested and are kind of trending down at this point. The big slug of water really is just kind of down in this area, and it's trying to get to the Gulf. So in the meantime of staging up the water there, it's keeping the Santa Fe from draining, so you get a lot of that backwater effect as well. The upper Santa Fe gauges, despite the fact they're still in kind of minor flood, some of those are actually trending down as well. So it's going to take a little bit of time. That was a lot of rain in a 24-hour period, but we'll get there. We'll get the river drained out to the Gulf. Upper Florida and aquifer levels, I wanted to show this. This is from June 2024. This was last month's, but I wanted to compare it with this month. So what we're basically seeing here is we had above 90th percentile, a huge area of that stretching from Madison County into Suwannee County. On top of that, we had 75th to 90th stretching down into Suwannee County, Hamilton County, even over into Jefferson, Madison. We had some areas of Taylor and into Columbia and Gilchrist as well. On top of that, we had most of our areas over in the east on the normal, the 25th to 75th percentile. Now, we did have some areas of low 10th to 25th percentile, and that's in orange, and that goes from Levy County up through Lafayette, Dixie, and even over into Jefferson. And we did have a couple, actually 3 wells, I believe, one in Levy County, one in Dixie County, and one in Lafayette that all showed below 10th percentile. Now, if we fast forward 1 month, we got a little bit of a different look to it. Not quite as much of that above 90th percentile, mainly just over in Madison County, and then just down into Lafayette as well. I don't think any wells are really controlling that right there, so that may be just an anomaly. But what we've got on top, that's on top of the 75th to 90th percentile. That one's not quite as extensive because we saw it kind of go over into this area last time. We've got some areas still of 10th to 25th percentile, but not quite as extensive as we had before. So we did see some improvements down in Levy County and then even over into Dixie, but we do have one well still in the below 10th percentile. All in all, river levels did increase kind of over in the western part of our district. The arrow is trending upward, but for the most part, our wells went down, especially over in the eastern part of the district. And once again, this should come as no surprise either. This is the U.S. Drought Monitor. This was released last Thursday, August 8th. We have absolutely no worries about drought. No abnormally dry, no moderate drought, no nothing. Really, Florida is looking good at this point. And that was thanks to Debbie coming through for some of that rainfall. And I did want to mention we are still currently under the El Nino Southern Oscillation neutral conditions. We are looking for that to continue for a little bit longer, but it's looking like it's about a 70% chance of us switching into a La Nina in anywhere from August to October and 79% from November to January. So we do look for some time later on this year, maybe late this year, of going into those La Nina conditions. With that said, though, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration seasonal outlook, this is for August through October. We are still in the above normal rainfall probabilities. One of the biggest reasons for this is our above normal predicted Atlantic hurricane season. Just like we saw Debbie come and sit over us and dump a bunch of water, this apparently is what their models are seeing as well. So that is why they're predicting us to have an above normal rainfall probability for the next 3 months. And above normal temperature probabilities for the next 3 months as well. I think we can all attest to it's very warm outside currently. I did want to give a little bit of an Atlantic hurricane season update. This is hot off the presses, really. I got this morning. So I'll start with the upper left, and that's the 2024 hurricane season outlook. This was updated by National Hurricane Center on August 8th. If you take a look at this pie chart here, 90% chance of above normal hurricane season is their kind of amended forecast. Only a 10% chance of it being near normal. No below normal exists at all. So it's pretty aggressive update for them as well. Named storms, they still have 17 to 24, hurricanes 8 to 13, and then 4 to 7 major hurricanes. Now, out of those, if you look just below that, we can go ahead and scratch off Alberto, Beryl, Chris. I believe those were all in June. Debbie, of course, was this past month in July. And we can go ahead and scratch off Ernesto, too. As of yesterday afternoon, Ernesto became a tropical storm, which it's barreling this way, but it is supposed to hit some steering currents and take it up into the Atlantic. So we don't look for that to come really close to the Florida coast at all, which is, yay, I'm glad, after what we just had. All right, July 2024 summary, we had a rainfall amount of 7.5 inches. That was just under 0.2 of an inch lower than that long-term average of 7.7 inches. We had a district-wide rainfall surplus at the end of July of about little over 1/10 of an inch, and that's coming off of that deficit of 1.4 inches we had at the end of June. District-wide upper Florida and aquifer levels fell slightly. It went from the 59th to 57th percentile. I did want to mention, though, currently, as of Sunday, the percentiles are 85.6. So we have climbed up with that rainfall that we got. We did see a median level decrease across our wells that are monitored for this report for about 1/2 foot. I did want to mention too, El Nino Southern Oscillation neutral conditions are expected to continue slightly or shortly. Then we'll look for a 70% chance of La Nina development from August to October, and then 79% from November to January. As we could expect, no drought classification for the counties exists due to Hurricane Debbie rainfall. And then finally, we had 5 named storms so far this season: Alberto, Beryl, Chris, Debbie, and then Ernesto just formed overnight yesterday. Madam Chair, I'll take any questions for me.
Okay. Any questions on our report? Yes,
Madam Chair, if I may ask Robbie.
Sure.
Can you flip back to the slide that has the river and the flood prediction or the cresting information?
Sure thing.
So just for general awareness, can you explain what each of those stages, what does it mean whenever we go into an action stage from a level, river level?
Madam Chairman. So action stage is the stage at which the National Weather Service will say, okay, we need to keep an eye on this. We need to probably start putting out some projections. Like, where is this going to go? Is it going to be in flood stage? Things like that. That's what the yellow is. That's kind of triggered by a certain level. And then, of course, there's a level for minor flood, major flood, moderate flood as well. But that's what the yellows are. Now, a lot of these have fallen back into action stage, meaning that they're going down. And then eventually, when they hit the bottom part of that, the projections will go away. They won't need those anymore until we start seeing it rise again. So that's what the action stage was. Does that help you? Okay.
I know everybody has been driving around and has been out and about since Debbie, and I've passed many low areas that are just flooded, just, lots, but it's sitting. It's almost acting like little retention ponds, and I'm assuming then that will percolate and will even, increase the amount of groundwater that we've got. So if we end up, everything's going to be full, our whole system's going to be full. If we end up with another hurricane within, let's say, another month, is it going to, is that going to look a lot worse than just for Debbie? Or, as we end up filling up our system, it has no place to go.
And Madam Chair, you're absolutely right. So once you hit a certain level in groundwater, there's not much it can take really. And then, you have to wait for that to trickle down. Here, if we had it really kind of just depends on the amount of rainfall that we got and then the duration of that rainfall. So if we got a bunch of rainfall over a bunch of days, that probably wouldn't be as bad as, say, 12 inches over 24 hours. That's kind of the kicker of it. A lot of these, originally they had some of these projected to be in major flood, and that was with the groundwater at 50 some odd percentile. that was just due to the quickness. Well, the fact that the storm was sitting over us and then just dumping the water on us. But they being the National Weather Service, had upwards of, I think, 15 to 20 inches predicted for that. So we didn't quite get as much as they thought, which is definitely a good thing. So a lot of these levels have fallen. The predictions have fallen rather since that. But yes, you're absolutely right. I don't want to say it could be a perfect storm, but we could see a lot more flooding if our groundwater stays upwards of 80, 90% and we get another one just sits over us. Yeah, that could not be good. I wouldn't think.
Okay. I think Mr. Keith ended up with the 20 inches or better.
And yeah, I did want to mention too, go back to that slide, Madam Chair. Yeah, so this is based on NexRad, and so NexRad is a 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer cell. And so there is possibility there is more localized rainfall than is being picked up in that grid cell. So yes, absolutely. I hate to hear you got that much, but
I think we're in that one little dot up there.
That little pink dot up
this
there.
one right up here.
Yeah, Lake Jeffers through there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and definitely, if you're right in the center or something, those cells are taking an average. So your chances are, yes, you probably did get upwards of 20 inches, but it's only showing, more than 12. I think this capped out close to 14, if I'm not mistaken. That last category goes to close to 14. It's a lot of rain.
Yes, sir, it is. Any other questions?
What,
Oh, okay.
Mr. Robbie, how much, I know that the Santa Fe's in flood stage, and I know it's kind of backed up because of the Swanee being so high too. What does that do for the percolation and the recovery of that system? If it's in recovery, does it help recharge some of that?
As far as like MFL recovery?
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
MFL stuff? Yeah.
Uh,
You gonna refer that to Dr. Brown?
Dr. Brown, with you.
Yeah.
Would you mind helping me with that? I will, Madam Chair, I will admit I was in MFLs for a while, but I have not.
I'm sorry that I asked if something above your pay grade.
No worries, no worries. No, I appreciate it. I think it's a great question, but I would have to defer to Dr. Brown.
Mr. Schwab, when we work on the MFLs, we're looking at a river system that we know is dynamic. And so when we're setting MFLs, we're looking at the river that's going to have both highs and lows. And so events like this would be considered within the historical record. So it wouldn't be something that would change the recovery status of a river. One of the things that we are looking at that could, in the long term, make a difference, though, would be trying to do more to store and recharge in places that have the capacity, the water that's coming from these types of events. In that point where you're actually getting more water in the aquifer in a sustained way to make a persistent benefit, that could change. But the historical record does have the highs and lows that are reflected with, the Florida rain cycle is a very dynamic cycle. And that's seen in the historical record, and that's a part of setting the MFL.
So with geology and the aquifer system being the way it is, how would you be able to take a historical event that we're having right now and put more water in the aquifer to be able to counteract some of what we're taking out of it? I mean, is there a way to do that? Is there more capacity somewhere that we could use it, or would you have to store this historic event somewhere and then eventually put it in when the aquifer could take it? How do you do that?
I'm sure. So we have Mr. Zwanka, our geologist, currently looking at areas of the district. Now, obviously, as we know, there are some areas of the district where you have used all the available capacity of the aquifer. And in those areas, we could not store the water in the aquifer, or we couldn't recharge it there. But there are other parts of our district, and many of them are a little bit further east, where there is some capacity to store extra water in the aquifer. And so it would be a matter of identifying the places and the sources of where and how you could put that water in a place where the aquifer is prepared to receive it. Because the goal would be to identify where you can recharge it without exacerbating flooding, and that would not be everywhere in our district, as we have seen. So that is an active part of the investigation that's going on in the projects group, and Mr. Zwanka is assisting with that.
Excellent. Thank you. I just know that we have some issues up there, and I see that we're having some excellent if you can call flooding excellent. You know, we got a excellent amount of water up there. And I just hate to see it go out the tide. You know, I hate to see that you would, not that it's a zero sum game, because it's a cyclical process, right? It evaporates, it goes up into the sky. It's never a zero sum game, but the deal is it's a shame that we have to quote unquote lose it for right now, but it is what it is. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just to add something to that as well, when these rivers are staged high, we of course we have tons of springs. A lot of those will start to estival, which means all that water will go back into the ground for us. So that's it's not fun when the river floods, but when it's up pretty high and it estivals with those springs, it goes right down. So that's definitely a help for us as well.
Any other questions?
It's not relative to Robbie's report, but a question that I have that I wanted to bring up today. Our drainage wells, if you will, that we have in the district, and I know there's some right here in Live Oak. Do those wells go into the upper aquifer, or do they go down to the Florida aquifer?
Madam Chair, in this district, to my understanding, most of those would go into the Florida aquifer, the drainage wells that we have. And many of those drainage wells were put in prior to the current permitting standards as it relates to water flowing into our drinking water aquifer.
But future projects for development of the recharge system, that water would then have to go through some treatment process before it could go into the aquifer, right?
I'm sure, yes, sir. If it is a recharge well at this point, it would need to comply with the standards today. And to go into a drinking water aquifer, it would have to meet potable water standards.
Thank you. Sorry, Rob.
I think there is the project over in St. John's with their treating now Black Creek. It addresses that type of treatment,
It's,
or am I
it
mistaken?
is a type of treatment for the Black Creek project over at St. John's. And with it, they're actually taking surface water, which is your stormwater high flow conditions, and they're treating that water for tannins, so color and bacteria, and then they are recharging it into the Keystone Lakes. Is that project. And since you brought it up, I was going to mention this at my section, but they hope to have that project, the completed project. They did a pilot project. Now they're looking at the completed project on it. They hope to have it online later this year, November, December timeframe. The director told me not to hold his feet to the fire on that date, but once they get that project completed, he invited me to bring the board over for a ribbon cutting or to be able to view that project once it is online.
Okay, that'd be I would, definitely like to see that.
We will
That'd be
plan on
great.
that.
Oh, if you don't mind, accept on our behalf.
I will do that.
Okay.
You hear that, Robin?
Any other comments? All right. That was very good. Thank you.
Very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Hugh, do we have any cooperating agencies, organizations, announcements today? Okay. All right. Mr. Tom, do you have anything for us?
Yes, ma'am. Two things. The first thing is on LC1, and it's a settlement of the lawsuit of the district versus Brandon Creasy. The governing board had authorized us to file this lawsuit. It was against Mr. Brandon Creasy. He had been engaging in water well contracting within the district, but was not licensed under Chapter 373. Water well contractors in state Florida have to be licensed by a water management district. He had not been licensed by us or anyone else. He was apparently engaged in water well contracting in Georgia and just came down and started doing that. The way we found out about him was there were unsatisfied customers that had wells that were not working properly, et cetera. They called us, said, hey, my well driller did this, it's not working. Well, wait a minute, he's not even licensed. That's how it all started. So if you've got a well contractor that is licensed but is doing things incorrectly, we have lots of enforcement mechanisms. We can take the license, we can assess fines on the license, all of this. If you've got somebody that just simply has never applied for a license, doesn't have a license, our enforcement options are a little more limited. What we can do is we can send a notice to cease and desist, which we did, and then we can file an action in circuit court getting an injunction against that person from violating the statutes. So we gave the cease and desist notices, and then we filed this action to get a injunction against Mr. Creasy. Mr. Creasy was served. He's represented by an attorney named Mr. Chris Bryant out of Tallahassee, who I've worked with for many years on various projects. We agreed to a settlement, and by Mr. Creasy agreeing to the entry of a stipulated final judgment that imposes an injunction against him. And the point of the injunction is if he violates the injunction, we would be able to go back to court and get contempt penalties against him. So that puts some teeth into it. One of the things I put in the memoranda, and I wanted to reiterate, normally, if we file this kind of an action, we would be seeking penalties, attorney's fees, costs, all of that. Mr. Creasy had filed for bankruptcy protection, filed a Chapter 13 bankruptcy action, and he did that after all of these events occurred. Now, when someone files a bankruptcy action, it does not prohibit us from getting injunctions, but it doesn't prohibit us from getting monetary relief, but monetary relief, you have to pursue that in the bankruptcy court, and then whatever your award is becomes an unsecured claim. So it goes in with the claims like the Visa bill or all of that are rarely paid. So it was my recommendation, and the board agreed that we weren't going to pursue that. And so that's why this final judgment doesn't say anything about that. Now, between the time that I submitted this memoranda and today, we got notice from the bankruptcy court that Mr. Creasy is a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is a plan, and you have to make payments and do certain things. He had not done that, and the bankruptcy judge had dismissed the bankruptcy. So he no longer has the protection of the bankruptcy court. And the board is allowed, if you would like, the board is allowed to go after penalties and attorney's fees and all of that. The issue at this point is we've got a settlement. We've got about to get the injunction entered. You are not bound by that settlement. What happened was now the two attorneys have talked, and we have agreed to recommend to our clients this settlement. Nobody's bound by anything, so you all are free to tell me, no, we don't want to settle. And we can pursue the attorney's fees and penalties. I don't know, my sense of it is that might not be a very good return on your investment to do that, because certainly you're going to incur fees and expenses pursuing that. And then even though he didn't make the payment under his plan, he did file bankruptcy. I assume his assets or his non-exempt assets that we could levy upon would be limited. So I do want to make sure you all are aware that he's not in bankruptcy anymore, but I don't think that changes my recommendation to you all that we go ahead and agree to the settlement agreement by asking the court to enter the stipulated final judgment that's included in your materials.
I think we can see what the board feels like, but I probably, if we can just pack his lunch and send him back to Georgia, that'd be the best thing. Any other recommendation from other than just follow council's recommendation? Okay.
So if you would, you need a motion a second.
I'll make that motion, Madam Chair. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a logger, so
yeah.
I'll take my lawyer's advice.
All right, that sounds good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Tom.
Then I have one more starting on page LC6. A year, and gosh, I'm about to mess up my dates here. I think in 2022, we had entered into an agreement with Columbia County, Florida, an interlocal agreement that was approved by this board, approved by the Board of County Commissioners over in Columbia County. And the interlocal agreement dealt with the property near the Country Club Road property. That was property that has a dam on it, and that's been the property has been the source of the dispute with Mr. Hill for many, many years. I took the opportunity to update the timeline that I had prepared for this board previously. That's included in these materials, kind of tracking out the history of the dispute and what's been going on. But at any rate, the board ended up with this real property. Real property has a dam on it. The issue is that property has some value, and you could probably sell it and make money off of it. You could do lots of things with the property. But there's a dam on the property, and that dam is not presently permitted. So either this board is going to have to permit the dam, or you're going to have to sell it to somebody, and they will have to permit the dam, but it's got to be permitted. If I permit it, it can be permitted back the way it is now at the full height for a relatively large sum of money, or it could be permitted much lower, have a smaller impoundment for a relatively smaller amount of money. But it has to be permitted one way or the other. So in an effort to get this accomplished, we entered into an agreement with Columbia County that Columbia County would do this using their forces. We would contribute a certain amount of money. Once they were done, they would end up with the real property. That was derailed a little bit because the first step was that we would give them a deed to property, which we did. Then Mr. Hill filed an action seeking to quiet title against the district on the ownership of the property. And this was, I believe at that point, his second quiet title action. Had very little merit, but there was an action pending, and so Columbia County didn't wish to go forward at that time. Since that, and that was in 2022, I believe. Since that time, we've proceeded on with the lawsuit. The lawsuit has been, the trial court has ruled against Mr. Hill on that lawsuit, plus the trial court has entered an injunction against Mr. Hill to prohibit him from filing pro se any similar lawsuits challenging title to the property in the future. I think, though, in the meantime, I think it'd be fair to say, and the executive director could correct me on this, is that the will on the Columbia County Board has changed, and they no longer wish to be involved in this process. I don't believe that this board would be able to hold them to that agreement at this point because it's been so long, and I think they probably were justified in not going forward at that time because the property was involved in litigation. So they have requested that the interlocal agreement be canceled. Mr. Foreman, the county attorney, and I prepared a cancellation agreement. The Columbia County Board of County Commissioners has approved it. That cancellation agreement is in your packet. My recommendation is to go ahead and approve that and cancel the past interlocal agreement. Of course, we won't record that until we get our original deed back and all of that sort of stuff. I think once the interlocal agreement is canceled, though, remember the point of the interlocal agreement was to solve the problem of what do you do with the dam. When we cancel it, we've still got that problem. And that's something that, what's the old saying, the solution to government problems are all real easy. The only hard part is where's the money come from? That's the problem you all have is what are you going to do, the amount of money you're going to spend on this, how are you going to handle it, all of that to get that dam permitted. And then that's going to be back in the lap of the governing board. And you're going to have to work with staff and figure out what you're going to do.
Y'all have been really good on keeping us all up to date on this whole process. Has been going on for quite some time. I do think that probably we have some folks that are looking into different projects that are possible, and that this particular parcel may be advantageous for some projects that we can entertain. And so we can turn this around and make a problem into an asset. So my feeling is to go ahead and get out of the interlocal agreement so we can move forward with something that would be advantageous for our district. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but that's kind of what my understanding, that there might be a future project in this location that would be helpful.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I concur with your statement on the accepting the cancellation of the interlocal, but just a matter of clarification, you said the dam has to be permitted, but it is currently breached, right?
It is not currently breached. The dam is a huge earthen structure, and at the bottom it's got a pipe. That pipe is open, and the stream is freely flowing through the pipe. So it's not impounding water, or at least not impounding any significant amount of water. I mean, it may, with all these rains, it may be up a little bit, but it's being drained by that pipe, every day. And that's the condition we've had it in for several years. To actually be permitted, it's where it could hold water. The expensive part is that when Mr. Hill, well, wait a minute, let me back up. The whole thing came about because the pipe is metal and had rotted. And so he went in, removed all of the earth on top of it, replaced the pipe, put the earth back. Well, it's not that easy. You have to compact it. You have to do all these things to make sure there are no voids. If you have voids, that can sometimes lead to breaches and all of that. So the expensive part, if you wanted to recreate this dam, you'd have to excavate all that earth and compact it and recompact it and all, or you'd have to have some very extensive engineering studies to prove that there were no voids in that, and all of that's pretty expensive. An alternative would be to not bring it back to that same height. You could have it as a lower dam, which would have a smaller impoundment back there, but of course that's a little bit cheaper. And those are the kind of policy decisions that the board's going to have to make.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that I've had conversations with Hugh too, independently about that potential over there as being a project, and whether it determines that it needs to be a low impact dam or even a higher dam for the recharge purposes or so forth. I think that's when that determination would be made, and hopefully, if it is a viable recharge project, then that funding would be, come under that, the Springs grant or the River grants or whatever. I make a motion that we approve the recommendation to void the interlocal agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
All right. Thanks, Tom. All right. And that would, let's see if I can find where I am. Take us down to Tim. Hi, Tim.
Madam Chair, members of the board, those in attendance, good morning.
Good morning.
So I'll start as Director Thomas mentioned. I received a request yesterday morning from Senator Simon and Representative Tant requesting that we attend a meeting in Madison County late yesterday afternoon. So I do want to shout out to staff for pulling together maps and data and all that we needed to take with us to that meeting on short notice. We met with the sheriff, the elected officials, the emergency management, the county staff, county manager. It was a room full, including the FDM staff and just about anybody you could imagine that would be at the Emergency Operations Center during this time. With that, Leroy Marshall, Tyler Winburn, and myself, we did attend that meeting. There was a lot of discussion about the historical rainfall that they've had, the high groundwater levels, and they've got widespread flooding all through Madison County, just like we do in several other counties. We watched some live stream footage from a drone that I'll have to say was very sad to watch, especially in those closed basin areas. There was also a lot of discussion about the San Pedro Bay and what influence it may be having on the flooding conditions that they have there. As well as some ag work that had been done under an exemption. And I will say that Leroy Marshall, your plans to go right after this meeting, correct, sir? So he'll be boots on the ground looking at that situation and doing some evaluation today. Leroy presented several maps, including the flood maps, the areas that we have permits in that area, the LIDAR maps, and it was a lot of good discussion. But when people are flooded, they just want answers and they want relief. Mm-hmm. And so unfortunately that wasn't something that we could just go in and offer immediate, but we are trying to assist in any way that we can. So with that being said, y'all know I come from a field of emergency management. I've been in this situation myself. I see people in this room. Katie, you were some of those meetings. Those are tough meetings when you have to sit there and listen to people that's got 3-4 foot of water going through their home and they want to know who's causing the problem and who's going to fix it. But these type of situations are handled at the local level and then pushed up. So we are there.
we encourage them, look, you reach out to us anywhere we can help, anybody we can talk to. But I know in our county, it took, getting those agreements with the landowners to let us have entry to their property using county equipment and staff as we could. We got funding from Swanee River Water Management District to do part of those canals. But ultimately, it took federal funding to get those canals and all cleaned out. And I'm afraid that that's what we're looking at in this situation, which means it's going to be long-term. But, outside of that, I don't know if there's any other information that I can give. Leroy, you want to add anything to that? Okay. All right. Any questions, Madam Chair?
Any questions, Tim, on this?
I mean,
It's just not a whole lot you can do when you get that much
Chair.
water. Yes,
Yeah, and to the gentleman that spoke earlier, the county's already aware of what the process is, and that, I didn't realize you had that meeting when I made that comment, but, everything's in the works, as far as as much as it can be at this point.
It was, it's sad to see. It really is. But, so this morning for Business and Community Services, we have items number 10 through 21 on this morning's agenda, along with one supplemental item. So items number 13 and 16 are informational items for you. And then items number 11, 12, 14, 15, and 19 were approved by way of the consent agenda. So thank you for that. Item number 10 will be a facilities update given by our Administration Office Chief, Mr. Ben Glass. And then the supplemental item reference to the Blue Triton permit, that will be presented by our District Regulatory Office Chief, Mr. David King. And then items 17 and 18 will be presented by Mary Diaz from our Office of ERP and Environmental Projects. And then we will wrap it up with items number 20 and 21 presented by Mr. Leroy Marshall. So Ben?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Little bit of a mixed bag today on our facilities update. So we'll start with the less good news. We did sustain some damage here at the facility related to the storm. We've got some roof damage, we've got some roof leaks, and we had some wind-driven rain associated water intrusion behind one of the berms on the front part of this wing just behind us. Good news with that, we contacted our insurance carrier. The adjuster's already been out. We're working with a contractor that our carrier recommended that they have a direct relationship with, and that contractor and the adjuster are working together to come up with estimates to help us address these issues, of course, subject to our deductible. So those issues are addressable, and we are also talking with DEP to see, while that work is ongoing to address the storm damage, what we can use of the facilities grant we have to help supplement that activity. While there's already work, the best time to do work is when there's already work going on. So we want to take most advantage of that as we can. Another piece of good news, our field services building, the old lab that is being renovated. Our contractors did a really good job of buttoning up that site. It's by no means complete, but they rushed a few things, getting windows put in and things like that ahead of the storm. And we didn't sustain any damage out there. So their work is continuing there as scheduled. Happy to answer any questions.
Good news. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Ben. Good morning.
I'm David King with Office Water Use Water Well Regulation. I'm presenting to you today a supplemental item for Blue Trident's request for an emergency transport of water from their Madison facility to their Gilchrist facility due to the flooding conditions and the water quality at the Gilchrist facility. This authorization is outlined in the Madison water use permit, which allows them to make this request for up to 90 days a year. The initial request was approved by the executive director. Any supplemental extension of that has to come to each board prior. So if they need it again past this board, they would come to the next board and make the request again. I believe in hydrologic conditions report, the area where they're needing this water transported to is the section of the Santa Fe where that has the moderate to major flooding right now. And I believe in the Blue Trident, they've requested to speak today if you'd like to hear
Okay.
them on that.
Does the board have any questions for David while he's up there?
Just a matter of clarification. I read it and I think I know this, but this is really, they're not able to bottle at the High Springs facility or the Gilchrist facility. So they're transporting this water there, be able to do that.
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
I have one question. Is there a cap on the amount to be transported?
The cap on the permit is just under 500,000 gallons a day. It's about 0.498, 489.
It's a lot to transport.
It's a lot of trucks.
Yeah, a lot of water to transport.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. And I'll see if Miss Katie would like to come up. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
I think David actually covered a significant portion of what we would like to discuss. We did seek an emergency authorization on August 6th that was thankfully approved by the district. And we are coming back to you guys to seek a reauthorization or an extension of that emergency authorization through September 11th, 2024 for that tankering of water from Madison to High Springs. So we respectfully request your approval on that. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Any questions for Miss Katie? Nope.
Motion to approve.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All right. Thank you, David. Good morning.
Chair, members of the board. I'm here to present a couple of items for your consideration. First, agenda item number 17 on BCS page 25 regarding the River Cost Share Program recommendations for fiscal year 2024-2025. The recommendation is to authorize the executive director to execute contracts for projects with the appropriate entities for the fiscal year 2024-2025 Regional Initiative Valuing Environmental Resource Cost Share Program. The fiscal year 2024-2025 tentative budget includes funding for the Regional Initiative Valuing Environmental Resources, or RIVER projects, that enhance or address the district's water supply, water quality, flood protection, and natural systems core missions. The funding is consistent with sections 373-703 and 373-705 Florida statutes, which state that water management districts may provide assistance to local governments, regional water supply authorities, and water utilities. The funding awarded in prior years has facilitated the district's mission and achieved improvements to the infrastructure, economy, and public health of communities throughout the district. Since 2013, the district has funded 81 projects and $8.7 million in cost share. The estimated benefits at completion for these projects are a reuse and conservation of 0.6 million gallons per day, flood protection of 51,000 acres, sediment reduction of 3.4 million pounds, nutrient reduction of 8,000 pounds to the surface. We've converted 240 existing septic systems to sewer, upgraded 3 septic systems to advanced treatment, and prevented 315 future septic systems by providing septic to sewer infrastructure. Since the last governing board update in August 2023, staff received 18 new applications and conducted outreach assistance on 8 projects that have previously not ready for implementation. Of the 26 applications, 4 projects were withdrawn, 3 projects have been funded by other funding sources, 7 projects have been placed in the project's queue, 4 projects are recommended for district funding, and 8 projects are currently not being recommended for consideration. The remaining projects are under review and staff are working with applicants to complete the information necessary to prepare a recommendation of funding. Up on the screen, we have a map of the recommended river projects, and that's in the list of the recommended projects. So again, the recommendation is to authorize the executive director to execute contracts for projects with the appropriate entities for the fiscal year 2024-2025 Regional Initiative Valuing Environmental Resources Cost Share Program. Any questions?
Any questions on the river projects? None? Okay.
Just one, I got one quick question, and when it's in the queue, that just means that it's been submitted, but it hasn't really been considered at this point? Is
Madam
that
Chair?
correct?
Please.
So when it's in the queue is we think that application is substantially complete and we're currently seeking funding for it.
Okay.
So we think that it's in a fundable stage. We just need to find the funding.
There's one pretty big one in there. Yeah. Well, I think as we go forward, especially trying to wrap my head around the MFLs and trying to comply with getting out of recovery and all that, there's going to be some very expensive projects that's going to have to come before this board. And there's a lot of money that's going to have to be funded from the federal government. That's the only place that kind of money can probably come from. So, anyway, I have no other questions, but make a motion, we approve the recommendation.
We have a motion? Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. See, I tried to pass you over, Rick, okay? I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I wanted to thank you very much. We really appreciate the ongoing partnership we have with you all and working with your staff. And one of our projects, the Oakmont Reclaimed Water Project, is one of the projects proposed for river funding. And that's a little bitty piece of the MFL issue, but that helps to reduce the amount of groundwater that needs to be pumped for irrigation. So thank you very much. We really appreciate that.
We appreciate y'all finding projects that will help us with the MFLs. Yes, sir. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
I'm sorry. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item for your consideration is item number 18 on BCS page 28 regarding the projects database solution request for proposal. The recommendation is to authorize the executive director to enter into negotiations with Paul Consulting Group, execute a contract for the development and implementation of a new database solution for the environmental projects and agricultural programs for an amount not to exceed $200,000, and if unable to reach agreeable terms with the top firm, enter into negotiations with the next ranking firm until an agreement is reached. The district maintains an in-house database recording environmental project and agricultural cost share information. The information housed in the current database is critical for reporting to the DEP, to the district, to other agencies for statutory required reports, budget development, and audit reporting. The current database requires manual data entry, which results in a duplication of effort and an increased risk of human error. The database also duplicates information from other district systems, but does not mirror updates or sync information. Due to the amount of data required to manage and report on its various projects and the desire for a more automated solution, the district solicited proposals from interested data management and software developments through a request for proposal, RFP. The RFP scoring criteria included their ability to perform the scope of work, the total price, prior experience developing similar solutions, prior experience with district or other similar governmental entities, and the location of developers in relation to the district. The district received 19 qualified proposals. Based on the proposals, staff determined that a new database solution can be developed that establishes data connections with other district systems that will enable the automation of data entry into the new database. The selection committee ranked and scored all qualified proposals, with Paul Consulting Group ranking the highest. Paul Consulting Group is located in Tallahassee, Florida. An example of similar work that they've done is for the Florida Municipal Electrical Association, FMEA, the rate report. And this system started as an access database, similar to, just like the district, which will start with an access database. It increased the workflow efficiency between the FMEA and constituents through automation of an electrical bill, and eliminated the need for FMEA personnel to manually input their kilowatts per hour data emailed from entity, cities, and constituents. Attachment A includes a list of the respondents to the RFP. Funding for this agreement is included in the fiscal year FY25 tentative budget and is contingent upon the approval of this FY25 final budget. And so again, the recommendation is to authorize the executive director to enter into negotiations with Paul Consulting Group, execute a contract for the development and implementation of a new database solution for the environmental projects and agricultural programs for an amount not to exceed $200,000, and if unable to reach agreeable terms with the top firm, enter into negotiations with the next ranking firm until an agreement is reached. Any questions?
Questions from the board?
It states in here that that it will be able to communicate with other districts. Is that kind of a goal of the project, or is it primarily for our use? I mean, I could see some benefit to having a database that marries with or communicates with the other districts, so that when we're talking about, well, for example, like the St. John's Water Management District, if our data was being compiled with theirs, is that just in there because they say they can do that, or is that something that we would look to have happen?
Madam Chair? The database that I can, so it will connect districts' in-house databases together. There is E-reg, which is the permit database that is created by St. John's, and the idea is to connect it to that, but we're not connecting to other districts' databases, but our internal database systems is what the goal is, to connect our different our E-reg, our Access database, our Civic Plus, and all these different databases that we have, and we have to input information into them, and AccuFund and all these different things to make it into one database, or we put information in there, and it's all connected. And so it'll help with answering questions from the board, what are the benefits on budget and all that. It'll just be much easier and less room for error.
Okay. Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes,
So do you know if any other water management districts are using any of these companies?
Madam Chair? Let's see. Any of these other companies, I don't know that. I've got examples of projects that Paul Consulting Group has done with other state agencies, but not with another water management. They did work for the Florida Department of Public Health and some work for Leon County. But I don't have information on whether they.
The reason I was asking if they're familiar with what we do, if they've been working with other water management districts, it may be an easier fix as far as getting them to gather information and put it all together. They'd understand it better, that's all.
Maybe a little bit less expensive.
True.
Madam Chair, if I could ask, and Tyler Jordan may be able to respond to some of this as well, but if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the other districts have onboard staff that work internally on the database systems. Tyler's going to grace us with his presence downstairs.
So us being
Thank you, Tyler.
the fifth largest, we don't have the staff.
Well, it hasn't been a priority, to embrace that, but it's getting to a point relative to the projects that we have on the ground and the ones that we're foreseeing to come, both water quality and water supply projects, as well as the data that we're getting on board. We have the need, and certainly all of you and myself, legislators, we want to have access to that information in a rapid fashion, and this would enable that.
Good morning.
I may address the question.
please.
So we do not currently have the staff to be able to reach the scope of work with this project. It's going to require more than likely full stack developers for this, web development, database administrators. And if we were to try to hire that staff in-house just for a full stack developer, we're looking at anywhere from $90,000 to $150,000 just to hire that one person to come in here and try to assist with that project. But I believe, we went through the RFP submittal process, and staff has come to the conclusion that Paul Consulting Group seems to fit us the best. They're keeping price in mind, they're keeping staff in mind, and also too that they're local as well. So
That's a good thing.
be happy to answer any other questions.
I have a question for Tyler. Did you help rank these guys?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay, the reason why I'm saying is I want to know what it takes to get an 8 and a 0 on a ranking. I mean, that is an underachiever right there for sure.
Yes, sir. I more than likely they just weren't meeting really anything in our scope of work. It was just a blanket. Here's a proposal. We threw it out there. Here's what we got. But I did have 2 of the IT staff actually participate in this proposal as well, and I'd say that they did their due diligence with their rankings for sure.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Tyler.
Tyler, before you go, just a couple questions. I'm all for the efficiencies some of these systems can do. I guess just can you speak a little bit on, the flexibility for future? Is this going to eliminate virtually all manual entries? And then what's the ongoing maintenance to continue to keep that updated? If some of the plugins change, then will you have to go back and recreate that?
Say getting started with this is going to make everything a little bit more seamless and integrate things a little bit better. We have probably around 10 in-house databases that we utilize. So when we get started with this project and see how efficient it is, we'll probably look at in the future tying other database records into that and seeing if we can pull that database or that data all together in more like an overall dashboard that people can look at. But yes, as things change, in IT and in the database world, there probably will be changes that we see going forward that we'll have to adjust for. But, when you look at going with a company like this or any of the other ones that we have here on the list, they're more equipped to assist with those changes. And so it's nice having that expertise there that we can rely on. Hopefully I answered your question.
Good enough. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Part of the proposal that we were told there was if Paul couldn't meet your needs over a period of time, that you guys would go back down to ISF or one of these other ones. Are you comfortable enough to do business with ISF or any of these other guys on the list that are ranking high?
Yes, sir. If they're highly ranked, say if they're in at least the top 3 or top 5, we'd be comfortable going with them.
No problem.
Yes, sir.
Good deal. All right. Any
I'll
other
make a
questions?
motion.
Good. We have a
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. I think we're going to take a break. Would everybody like a break for a few minutes? Okay. We're gonna take a 10-minute break.
With me.
All right. That was a lot of good conversation, but we're going to get back to work. Good morning, Leroy.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm going to be doing the next 2 items. The next one is a task work assignment with WSP USA Environmental and Infrastructure Incorporated. Back in January of 2017, the governing board approved the FDDOT mitigation plan and authorized the district to mitigate for wetlands impacted associated with DOT projects. The Edwards Bottomlands project was designed to offset wetlands impacts associated with County Road 231, which is the new River Bridge replacement project that DOT had. Over the next couple of years, the district constructed a 2-stage channel on the Edwards Bottomland parcel. The channel had been a straight man-made channel, and what we did was we replaced that channel that had soil all the way up to the sides of the channel by digging out the channel to lower the elevation and then putting in a meandering creek system that is closer to a natural creek system, and constructed that actual historic floodplain, which helped the Edwards Bottomland be able to create some wetlands for the wetland mitigation for the DOT project. Over the last 3 to 4 or 5 years, we have been in a monitoring stage with monitoring the vegetation that's been put in and making sure that it meets the criteria of the Army Corps permit. What we are proposing and asking WSP to do is to come in and do an evaluation over the entire project, review the permit, review what is out there, and make sure that what is out there is constructed correctly, so that when the project is finished with the monitoring, we can transfer the project over to the city of Stark. This project is a little different in most projects that the district, well, I won't say most, in a lot of the projects the district does, the district keeps the property. In this case, we're going to be transferring the property. So we want to make sure that the project is in compliance with the permit, in substantial compliance, and to assure that the project is not increasing any flooding upstream. So a portion of this project will be modeling the project before the permitted and constructed portions of the Edwards Bottomland project. In addition to doing that for the completion of the project, the district is looking at putting a project there, a recharge project right there in that location. And so all of this modeling is going to help us design that project as well. So we're taking care of a couple of issues all at the same time. So the recommendation is to authorize the executive director to execute a task work assignment with WSP for additional engineering analysis services at Edwards Bottomland mitigation project in Bradford County for an amount not to exceed $215,000.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Leroy, before the project was done, did they have flow rates on the existing floodway before we dug it out, made it more of a meandering creek, so to speak? Did they have flood rates or flow rates through there so that we could determine what the project improved the flow rate?
Madam Chair. Amy, I believe there was a monitoring gauge above there. If you could answer that.
Madam Chair. We do have some stage information on there. I don't know that we have, I don't know what discharge data we have that predates Edwards Bottomlands. We would have to go back and look and see what information predates that project, that predates my tenure here at the district. But certainly we could look at that. But I do think that they would be able to simulate the effects of those meanders on the flow. Some of the original goal of the project was to keep the sedimentation down in the lake itself. And so certainly to achieve that goal, you would need to slow the rate of flow down. I think that should be simulated with what's being done here.
You definitely can model the flow prior to.
Well, and my question being, now that the project is maturing, we could see what the rates are now as growth takes place and stuff. Is it slowing it down? And will this project help us project 5 years from now what it'll look like, or what kind of maintenance should be performed on it?
Madam Chair. We definitely will, the modeling definitely will look at prior to the project and how the project looks now. As you can imagine, we can't really predict, how much growth and what's going to happen there. So we can look at it, how it was and how it is, and determine whether or not we're having any impact upstream because of this change. And then again, we're looking also to put in a recharge project in that same area. So the modeling is going to give us the answers as to what type of recharge project we can do and how much we can get in and that kind of stuff.
Will the recharge project be along the creek area?
Madam Chair. We're all trying to figure that out. Most likely, it's going to be in the front, closest. The way you're looking at it, I guess it would be your right. It's most likely going to be over there, but we're not 100% sure at this point.
'Cause I remember when the project was first done and we took the field trip out there, and we looked at the area, we had this pretty vast area of open that we did some planning on and stuff. You know, if that was going to be part of the recharge project.
Madam Chair, we are, that's kind of what the project is going to do, is going to help us make some decisions as to what we can do and how we can do it in the best way to make that work.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Leroy, I've read or I've looked at the Edwards Bottomland project. It seems like it comes up every couple of months here. But is that area that what's depicted there that doesn't look like it has any vegetation on it? I'm sure it's weeds or grasses or whatever, but does that entire area flood when there is a flood? I mean, does it come up out of that creek bank?
Yes, sir. That was the intent of the secondary channel, was that the flood waters would go and flood out all of those areas. And this is like right after the construction was done. If you were to see it now, it's all grassed over and it's all kind of vegetation out there. And that's part of the monitoring plan that we have over the last 5 years that we've been doing.
So there wasn't really, I guess the picture I'm trying to get in my mind is there wasn't any, we didn't do anything in the project to impede the flow to that point, correct? I mean, there's been some discussion or some brought to the board's attention that vegetation or something in that Edwards Bottomlands project was potentially going to cause it to back up. And I guess my question is, didn't we improve that situation by completing this project?
Madam Chair, that was the total intent of the project, was to address flooding, slow the water down, address the flooding, and improve water quality and flow through the area. What we will be doing on this one is providing third party investigation to give to anyone at this point when we're done, that we can say, this did not increase flood hazards or and it did achieve the proposed results. We also will put together an operation and maintenance plan for the city, again, so when we turn it over, it's complete, it's done, it's ready for them to take it over.
Okay. I think I understand now. The project was intended to reduce the flow going to the lake for sediment purposes, but it wasn't supposed to impede anything coming into it. It was just going to spread out and slow it down a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Understood.
I'm sure I make that motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Only comment I had, Leroy, that sounds like an awful expensive as-built, but if they're going to get monitoring in it for the project, then that helps a little bit.
It's going to give us some the flows that we need to do to know what we're going to be providing in the recharge project.
Okay, that will help.
It's a dual effect.
That's a good Band-Aid.
Thank you. So for the next one, as we go, okay. So the next project is a task work assignment with Wetland Solutions. This one is for the Lower Santa Fe. The district is developing an updated recovery and prevention strategy for the Lower Santa Fe and Itchitucknee Rivers associated with Priority Springs, coordination with DEP and the St. John's. We are including recharge projects to continue the recovery of natural systems, as well as other projects to focus on conservation and the development of alternative water supplies. Previous to this TWA, we have come to you with different investigative projects. Typically, they've come in two phases. You had a first phase that
was around $70,000 or $80,000, and then you would have a second phase that would come in that would be around 200 or so. What we've done on this project is combine both of those phases into one project with Wetland Solutions. And so they will be doing the first phase investigative portion of it. And again, this is on Cow Creek, looking for areas that we can do projects, discovering those projects, looking at any properties the district may be interested in doing a conservation easement or anything like that, which we do have one. If you could go to the map, Tyler. And then once the district has gotten all this investigative results, we can hone in on 2 or 3 options and then look at those options and actually come up with some designs, pretty much like we did with the La Crosse project. If you guys remember that, we came back to you and after phase 2 with options, costs, expected benefits, and all of that. So in this case, working with Wetland Solutions, what we intend to do is start the project and end at that phase where we have 1 or 2 options, and we have the cost, we have the benefits, we have everything. And at that point, we should be ready to move forward with making a selection on the project, whichever we feel is the best that will get us the recharge and storage that we need, and then move forward. In addition to this, we, as with the Edwards Bottomlands, we're going to be working with DOT to look for some mitigation areas for them in that area. Again, we'll just be kind of helping locate some areas if they have a project in this area for mitigation. We would kind of help look for that as part of this project as well. Can we go back to the recommendation? Thank you. So the recommendation is to authorize the executive director to execute task work assignment 2324-113-001 with Wetland Solutions for the Santa Fe River Basin Cow Creek Recharge and Wetland Enhancement Project for an amount not to exceed $275. One of the things I forgot to add is this money has been funded through a feasibility study through DEP. So the money for the funding for the project is coming from the DEP.
Is there a motion or question?
I got one question.
Okay.
I think I'm familiar with this parcel. Is that the Taylor potential? Okay. So if we were to determine that that was a project area and for a recharge area, would that come under the conservation easement, or would the district have to find a piece of property out there that we could buy for less than fee?
Madam Chair, if I may reply to that. Mr. Thompson, I think the goal is both of what you've just identified, that we have had discussions with Mr. Taylor about doing a project on his property once we identified exactly what project would be most beneficial in there. He is receptive to that, so that certainly would be incorporated into the conservation easement at some point with it. And then the other part of it is, if the district so desires to acquire a parcel of property there, not outside of, or it would be outside of Mr. Taylor's property, that would be suitable for a project. So I think the idea with this TWA is to look at those options. What's the best option for project in that area there?
Okay. Madam Chair, I make that motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Tim. Good morning.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Division of Outreach and Operations has 17 items for your consideration today, plus several updates. Items number 22, 23, 33, and 38 are for informational purposes. I'll be presenting items number 24 and 25. And then all other items you approved on consent, which we very much appreciate. a few things to provide an update on relative to subjects that may be of interest to the board is that throughout this last flooding event, where we have been seeking to be as responsive as possible and then also as proactive as possible, Mr. Keith will appreciate that we just continually reminded of the importance of education relative to how the uniqueness of our natural system works is different than other parts of Florida. And so continuing to provide information to our residents, which Troy has done a phenomenal job working with our subject matter experts. He's here early, he's here late, he's been here on the weekends, reached out to me last night about 8:30 relative to a reporter request that we are not like Central and South Florida. We do not have dams and locks that we open and close, and that it is very much based off of our natural system and the maintenance of that natural system and the restoration and protection of that natural system. And so, like Tim mentioned earlier, it is a sad situation when folks are displaced from their homes, and they do not want education. They want action. And so we are doing our best to think through how we can more proactively share these messages outside of times of high water, so that folks can make informed decisions as they choose to purchase and build and buy and develop in our area. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Troy's been doing a phenomenal job, and he's been working with our subject matter experts, Robbie and Paul, and different staff relative to how we can share information. Lorna's going to come up after I go through the land acquisition section and provide you an update on the district's response to the storm, to Hurricane Debbie. We activated our emergency response team and had about half of all of our staff here at the district participate directly, and then largely the rest of the staff supported that effort. So she'll give you some information on that, and I just think it's worth a public thank you to all the staff who spent time outside of normal business hours after they took care of their personal response to the storm. They made themselves available to the district and had time away from their homes and from their families to help support the district's needs. And with that, I will move, if there's no questions, I will move on to the land acquisition section of your agenda. The first item that we have for you today is on OPS page 6. It's item number 24. And this is an item that was considered by the Lands Committee in the July Lands Committee meeting and was unanimously approved. One note I want to make on this memorandum is that when working with our legal counsel, we made some last minute edits that are reflected in the red line version and the clean version of your directive, but I want to correct on this memorandum that this memorandum, it does authorize the executive director to approve court-ordered or eminent domain takings of easements, and it clarifies language on the compensation and easement donations, but it does not authorize the ED to approve any easement. So Mr. Thompson had mentioned in the Lands Committee meeting, is there any way we can do to streamline this process to better utilize staff time? And we can do that, but Tommy informed me that based on a reading of the rule, that the board needs to do that. So we will be seeking rule updates with, Warren called me this morning about the regulatory plan. We will be seeking changes to our 40B9 rules that can hopefully, with the board's approval, streamline some of the approvals of our acquisitions and easements that are what we would call small and potentially even de minimis. So with that, the governing board staff recommends that the board approve Governing Board Directive 24-004 for access and utility easement requests.
Any questions from the board? Motion.
Make the motion, Madam Chair.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
All right, thank you very much. Madam Chair, the next item for your and the board's consideration is on OPS page 12. This is for the approval of Governing Board Directive number 24-005 for land acquisition and surplus guidelines. And similarly, I have a note to clarify an item on this memorandum too. This directive was approved unanimously by the Lands Committee at the July 9th Lands Committee meeting. And at that time, we were seeking approval to have the Lands Committee authorize due diligence. However, again, after meeting with Tommy, reading through our rule, we realized that that is a rule change requirement and cannot be done through our directive. So that first bullet there, you can be stricken, and it has been stricken from the directive language because our rule has to be changed to allow for that authorization. So this directive authorized the ED to deny offers. It removes duplicative language relative to Florida Forever Plan, and it clarifies some clerical and formatting errors, or corrects clerical and formatting errors.
I'll make the motion, Madam Chair.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Very good. And my final update before Lorna comes up and provides her emergency response information is that as of state land acquisition and surplus, the district has received back its appraisal for the Dixon Tanner Springs property that's listed in your summary here. It's 40 to 50 acres up in Hamilton County. So I'll be working internally to see how we want to proceed and what the district wants to potentially offer relative to that project. The other three properties, the Taylor property that you mentioned, and Gilchrist, the Levy County Hodges property, and the Levy County Williams property, we are seeking appraisals, approval for appraisals, and all easement terms for Hodges and Williams have been agreed to in principle, subject to board approval, of course, but with the landowner in principle. And then we will continue to work with Mr. Hodges. And if we can reach agreement in principle, then we will move forward with appraisals. So those projects are moving along.
Thank you very much. And Caitlin, I would, at this point in time, I think the board definitely would like to thank staff, everybody that contributed their personal time and working through Debbie and helping out in any way they could. We have the most excellent staff ever, but they do need a thank you, and we'd like to express that here at the board. If you would just pass that along to everybody that helped out, we'd
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate
I'll be
it.
sure to do that.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning, Madam Chair, Board. So Hurricane Debbie, of course, hit us on August 5th and did direct impact at our district. And our team, our incident management team, activated on August 6th with a 8:30 a.m. briefing and basically went into action. So we started with morning briefings and then had planning meetings in the afternoon to set up for the next day. And each section of the team was vital with key inputs. So although they weren't working the storm 8 hours a day, what they was working was with key inputs. So Robbie with his information, weather inputs from Emily, Miss Sharon helping with plans. There were just so many people. So we actually had 12 on the incident management team, but 39 staff total helping. So huge. We had 3 branches of operations. So the first branch was lands, and there was 4 team members. And we basically conducted damage assessment. We recorded over 100 observations in our collector app. So you saw a beautiful picture of what Suwannee Springs looked like at the beginning of July. Well, that was what you could see the day after Debbie came through. So a big difference, huge impact. We have started initiating contracts for cut and toss operations with 3 existing contractors utilizing pre-storm rates, which helps us a lot to minimize cost. We've already conducted 25 miles of cut and toss, and we are waiting on the river levels to go down to open our lands back up, just to reduce the amount of damage so that we don't have to go back and do a lot of road work and so forth. But operations are ongoing in this branch. Branch 2 was our hydro team. There was 9 members. They recorded measurements in 5 different creek flows. They also caught a measurement, a reverse flow measurement in Peacock Springs. They had attempted 4 other flows, but the water levels were just too high to actually get a good accurate flow. They repaired sites that were reporting levels, so it was good intel that was coming into Robbie. They were able to get out there and fix those sites to get accurate measurements. Their operations are complete as of last week. Our third branch was stormwater. There was 14 members. They conducted high-level water mark strike team, and they basically had over 160 observations that they had captured last week. It was all shared directly with the state DEM. Their team also did a dam site visit, and their operations were complete as of last week.
What dam site did they visit?
What dam?
The which one? Okay.
And that is an update unless you have any questions.
One question.
Yes, sir.
So what was our recording of the total rainfall here? That's a big, everybody's got a different version of that.
You were here on time, you could have saw that.
I apologize for not being here on time.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead, I apologize.
It's okay.
I would have to refer to Robbie, who
Robbie.
had already left.
Okay, that's fine. Somebody should remember it if it's that important. I mean, I heard of just a tad above 16, but,
Madam Chair, are you talking about here at the district
here,
office?
right, yeah, right here. I figure we've got something on site here that would record
Put me on the
that.
spot because I do not know exactly what it is here at the office.
I know that in emergency management, it was 16.02 or something around there. I was just wondering if it's different over on this side of town or whatever, because I've been
Understood. We can get you that information. if we
dealing,
have it,
well,
but-
I was just wondering, I mean, I had a lot of water to deal with this week, and, you know,
I bet.
what we had over here.
We realized that you were very busy, Mr. Sessions, and
I will.
we appreciate you.
I got this close to putting on my diving gear, okay?
I would add that
I got a visual of that.
Tuesday morning,
It's cute.
Tuesday morning, reminiscent of whenever Debbie came through back in 12,
12.
the water across the northern entrance right here to the parking lot out front was underwater.
I remember that.
And it extended. It wasn't to the extent of when Debbie and 12 came through, as far as the extent of the flooding within the area here. But there was a lot of water.
I think you said it was like 7.8 district-wide average. But that's not, and he said, and then of course they had.
Well, I saw the map.
Live Oak was
when I
really.
first got
probably-
here.
Yeah.
Live Oak and then out toward Madison, you know, on that western side was pretty bad, but,
We will get you that information specific to this.
sorry
Yeah,
if I was
That's okay.
not here on time to get that information.
Madam Chair?
Assistant Chair.
Hey, I was surprised that there wasn't a little red dot right on Live Oak because the district, the red that was shown in the middle was like, what, 10 to 12 inches? And I'd heard reports of 16 plus inches.
We were in the white, you know, as far as the map. When I first walked
Yeah.
in, there was a map up, so,
Yeah, maybe it should have been a different color, maybe purple. or
yeah.
something, I don't know.
Should have been a little fire or something, I don't know. It was a bad spot. That's okay, I'm sorry. Feel better now? Yes, much better. Hopefully you feel better about your visual.
Sure, I will get him a response. Anything else?
We digress, but yes, thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Water Resources has 3 items. The first is just a brief update, and thank you for your approval of items 40 and 41 by way of the consent agenda. So for the update, Tyler, I just have, as was already mentioned, we did host a DEP workshop here at the district on July 31st, where DEP presented the proposed rule that has been developed in coordination with the St. John's District and the Suwannee District. Since then, we've been engaging with stakeholders, including a meeting last week in the evening that was held at the request of some of our, and hosted by some of our stakeholders, and we had participated at their request. We're continuing individual outreach. There is an open public comment period that runs from now through August 30th, and I know that some of you may have received questions or comments about the rule. I would encourage you to encourage those that are reaching out to you to submit their public comments during this open public comment window. There's a link, an email, and the QR code that will all get you to the site that has the information about the rule and the way to make those public comments. We'll continue to engage with stakeholders through this open public comment period, and I'm certain we will continue to engage with folks far beyond August 30th as we work on the Lower Santa Fe rule. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
I have a quick question for you, Dr. Brown. With some of these potential water projects, and I mean, just like what we were talking about, the Edwards Bottomland and some of the other stuff, looking for potential water recharge projects. And I know that Leroy mentioned that the DOT was looking for potential projects and for mitigation and everything else. I know that with this rulemaking process and trying to get a hold of this right here with the DEP, expressing what we need to do and taking comments. Have we considered being able to press on other state agencies like DOT, to help not just come up with projects, but possibly fund them? Because, I mean, we're looking, Mr. Larry Kay down there mentioned that in the future, we're going to have a lot of expensive projects coming down the pike. And I would submit to you that I would hope that we're looking at every stakeholder that's always coming to us either for mitigation credits or whatever, to these people, to those agencies being able to contribute to that. Is that ongoing? Is that like something that we're aggressively looking toward through this whole rulemaking process and everything?
Madam Chair.
Please.
So a part of what's being done right now is to identify what options, what the options are out there. And Leroy has made mention of, in some cases, there might be other agencies that have a similar interest in those sites. And some of the motivation for moving towards having a project queue as the one that they have described is so that we can identify suitable partners and funding sources for those. So I would say, yes, I think we're looking at what funding options are appropriate based on the types of projects that are being envisioned. In some cases, what we need a project to do and what another agency needs a project to do may line up. In other cases, they might not. But one of the advantages to trying to get those projects to a place where there's a list of fundable projects is so that we would have that ability to engage with other partners to identify where we can have good solutions that meet multiple benefits.
Well, one thing I just want to encourage our staff and our people and even this board to do is, if we have rules coming down where people are actually going to have skin in the game and cost, especially for new permitting and other things. And I know all the rules haven't come out and that are officially stamped. I just want to make sure that we, as the district, are not caught flat-footed, that we actually have a good list of bona fide projects in the queue. We might not have them funded. We may not, we maybe we have a budget. Maybe we put a budget together too of what we estimate that this is going to cost. And we've seen in the last few months projects that have been delayed because of COVID and a whole bunch of other stuff astronomically go up in expense, right? So I just want to make sure that we come across as we're just not saying that y'all get ready, it's fixing to cost you. I just want to say that we have some solutions. This is really going to help. And I know that we funded a bunch of studies and we just funded a pile of money to be able to do some research projects and everything else. And I just think it's so important that we're not just perceived as being regulators or controlling these entities that are in this area, but we're actually providing solutions to where we all have this thing together. You understand?
Yes, sir. And not just internally to our district, but in coordination with St. John's, we're
Yeah.
trying to see if there is a regional solution that potentially could help everybody engage and get where we need to go. So yes, that's very much on our minds, and not just the Water Resources Division, but all the divisions in the district are looking with that in mind.
I personally, I know that we've taken some time in the last couple of weeks to visit about some of this stuff. And I just wanted to express personally that I appreciate you and your work and your staff and Hugh and your leadership on this right here, because we just don't need to be coming out and saying, hey, DEP's got this new rule here, and, you know, I don't know what we're going to do with it. You know, and I do appreciate us trying to get ahead of it, because that's what we need to be problem solvers and solution givers, because we do have the science behind what we do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Board, and Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Richard. And we do, as that's one of our core missions as the Water Management District, is to develop water supply projects for the future and provide that water for our stakeholders and identify those projects. And I appreciate staff's efforts to that end. And it's going to be, the board will be seeing things in the future, as Mr. Thompson alluded to, with some pretty hefty price tags to some of this. And as a district, we are going to have to look for state support for that. Relative to the projects identified as part of this Lower Santa Fe and Ichetucknee rulemaking, with that ratification, there is a cost or an estimated cost of that. That's part of the process for the rulemaking. Once it's determined what that estimation will be for the impact of that rule. Additionally, relative to the projects that we identify within that rule and that prevention and recovery strategy going forward, one of our partners will be St. John's. They are legislatively and statutorily, they are required to fund 25% of those projects going forward with it. But anyway, we continue to have a work in progress. And as Amy mentioned, I think we had a very supportive role in the meeting last week. It was hosted by the Florida Peanut Federation out at the Research Center. It was well attended with a lot of key producers within the ag community. And Amy did a great job presenting that information. And it was a little bit challenging. That won't be our first, that's not our first challenging meeting. It won't be our last with that. But she did a great job with that. And I received several responses from some of those that were attendees at that they were very appreciative of the level of information that came out, and the district and board for having staff that would support a meeting like that with doing outreach efforts. I want to go a little bit further than what Lorna did, but I do want to recognize our staff, and I appreciate the board recognizing our staff and the efforts that they have been through, particularly over the last week and a half, and even longer than that prior to Debbie and the response that we put together with Debbie. With that, there's been a lot of time put in with our county EOCs and on the state level as well. And we continue with that. And I do want to give, although he's not in audience today, I do want to give a shout out to Warren because he has worked very well with the Corps of Engineers. Our liaison with the Corps of Engineers who's come here, Warren's been out in the field with them one-on-one. In one instance, he and David both went out relative to some of the flooding issues in Madison County and looking at that. You heard some comments this morning relative to some of our residents that have been flooded or experiencing high water conditions with that. And all I would ask is that we keep in mind, we have closed basins in our district and we have open basins within our district. And some of what you've heard this morning are examples of both. When you look at Madison County, some of the information that we pulled together for the meeting yesterday, if you look at Madison County since November of last year, Madison County's received over 67 inches of rain in that area. Our groundwater levels for that same time frame have been in excess of 90% over there. So those areas that are closed, the bathtub's full and the drain's full right now from a groundwater perspective. So we're seeing more exhibition of that term groundwater flooding that's becoming more and more, people are becoming more and more aware of it. And we experienced this a few years ago down in Dixie County, and we've had it in other parts of our district. And it's our geology that we have here. And the river is the drain for that and from a groundwater system. And when that river drops, it'll take more water, as we all know. You get in Mr. Leonard's situation up in Greenville, and he's talking about the surface water creeks and the blockages there. And this district's been very supportive with some of our communities when requested to help address that. That's a little bit different situation. That's a surface water system. And so it's critical to have that maintenance and be able to keep those ditches clear, to take that surface water off the system and get it into one of our river systems as well. I think I'm about done. I did mention the Black Creek project, and they'll be doing a ribbon cutting on that. So we'll keep you all apprised of that, and so make sure we can get it on your schedule going forward. And we do have a audit committee meeting, and Mr. Ingram is here already with that. So with that, I will be quiet, other than responses to comments or questions.
Maybe just a reminder, which I didn't do, for September's meetings.
Yes, ma'am. Be glad to.
Okay.
But we do, if you recall, for our September meeting, that is our budget public workshop meetings. Our board meeting will be at 3:00 in the afternoon on the 10th. And then we will have our first public hearing for budget at 5:05, time certain there. And then our second and final public hearing will be on the 23rd. Again, we would like to convene at 3:00. We'll have some workshop and committee items for the board. And then at 5:05 on that Monday, it's not on a Tuesday, but on that Monday on the 23rd, we'll have our final public hearing for our budget.
Okay.
And that's all, that's our meetings.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Couple of questions. Some of it's been covered today, but these are just some questions I've been hearing from the public. Take Live Oak, for instance, and I'm sure Larry can probably comment on this, but there are some direct injection wells, go away holes, whatever they want to call them, old, that are, what I understand, clogged up with vegetation, this, that, and the other. Well, these are pre-permitted holes, whatever, but they don't function anymore. Is that by design? They don't keep up with them because they weren't permitted and they don't want this much injection? Or is this just a county situation that money restraints, time, whatever, they just haven't maintained? Because apparently there's a lot of stormwater structures. We heard from the gentleman from Lee, I think earlier, that said that they had this stormwater structure engineered years ago, worked fine for a while, but over time, growth and trees and whatnot enter into it. I've seen it in Columbia County, subdivisions that were permitted, and they drained well with the stormwater system until trees and debris started building up in them, and it just restricted the volume of flow, and over a couple of hours you end up with flooding, and then it recedes back and seeps through. It just doesn't flow out like it was engineered to. This seems to be, for me, just hearing small amounts, it seems to be this is a widespread problem in a lot of maybe the smaller communities. And not necessarily even that, because I had a situation I heard about at Swift Mud on a project. And over years it had grown, it was on private property. And they had this issue with private property. And it flooded out several homes in a storm years ago. Strictly, in 2 hours, it had receded. But and the amount of rain they got in a short period of time, it flooded these homes. They did allow them to come in and straighten it out, but is this something that, we mentioned to the communities that, the need for the maintenance on these stormwater structures once they're engineered and done? Sometimes they just, it's nice, it happens, and then they walk away from it. But we've spent a lot of taxpayer dollars on these projects, and simple maintenance is not done, and they end up going away after 10 or 20 years of effectiveness anyway. Now, people in Live Oak are telling me that there's a retention area, I guess, south of 90, around the old 90 area, what they refer to. And it holds, but then when it fills up, then this water goes north and gets the downtown area, and it goes west, Helveston, and gets some communities over there. All right, if there's not enough area in there to expand stormwater or retention, is there any thought about diverting the water, pumping it to another location? I know we heard years ago about Mr. Music's pits and stuff out there in Wainwright.
I've got a plan. I'll explain it when it's my turn for comments, but
Okay.
we do have a plan.
Perfect. But that's just, the attention needs to be brought. And maybe we've fallen back to education part. We might have our team work on that, but it's great education for the children in school. But I think we need some education with the local governments too. And the article you did on the natural system, that's phenomenal. I don't know if everybody got to see it, but on the not having the dams and levees and how critical the natural system is, but it has to be maintained for it to function.
Madam Chair, if I briefly respond to Ms. Charles with that. And you're right, Ms. Charles, and I think it's a variety of reasons for why some of that work isn't done. We get into a drier period of time. Flooding is less of a concern at that portion.
Sure.
And with limited budgets, they get reprioritized sometimes with that. We get into situations like we're in right now. The realization is forefront with people that these systems aren't operating the way that they should. And when you say go away holes, there's a couple different definitions for that. I've heard sinkholes called that term before. I've also heard drainage wells, which are constructed man-made structure with that. And I think there was some discussion earlier about the drainage wells, and certainly we try to work with our communities where drainage wells were put in a number of years ago. Typically, those drainage wells were put in for flooding concerns. They need maintenance over time as well, and we've worked with DEP and to get some of those wells replaced with it, because they can be grandfathered in if there's an existing well in an area. They can be replaced like for like. But as I think Amy mentioned earlier, given a new well, new construction, new location today, the permitting of it is a lot more challenging from a quality standpoint. Getting in there. Looking at the sinkholes, certainly there's a level of maintenance that needs to be done for some of those areas relative to these closed basins to allow that flow in. We have an area just north of town up here that's getting flooding, and it's because where that sinkhole used to take water in still takes water now, but it's at a lot slower rate due to blockage in there, and that is on private property. So then you get into the challenge of having a drainage easement, which would be at the county level with there. We did a project, assisted in doing a project and identifying areas of drainage down in Dixie County couple of years ago when they were experiencing major flooding with that. But it was identified that there was a lot of maintenance that needed to be done to some of the drainage ways there, similarly in Bradford County and some of our other areas as well. So a lot of times it does resort to maintenance needing to be done on some of those drainage basins, superficial drainage basins anyway.
Yeah, and then you also have, as far as displacement of water, if the aquifers start to fill, and then we have slow saturation or no saturation to the aquifer, those go-away holes are really very little use.
They won't drain at that point.
I mean, pumping seems to be the alternative to, if we find the areas to, and then we get some recharge out of the retention, we can get it pumped to it.
Mm-hmm. Just depends on where you can pump it to. What's the next basin without flooding someone else in that case?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
That's
Anything
all,
else for
unless we
Keith
have other
today?
questions, Madam Chair.
Yes,
I just have some comments.
All right.
So he knows how I feel. If I would have spoke to this group last Wednesday, it would have been a pretty sarcastic discussion on my part. Calm down quite a bit. But I want to challenge Swanee River Water Management and its staff to really look at this last event and put on your thinking caps and come up with things. I've met with 2 different engineering groups this week, and I think I have a plan that'll fix it. We've heard all the things like Mr. Charlie said about the go-away holes, the permitted wells, and we, believe it or not, my staff at the city pays a lot of attention to those. With the amount of water that comes and they get over a 6-inch well, it's like trying to pour water down a straw with one of these. You're going to overwhelm it, okay? So what I need y'all's help with is DEP, because DEP will not allow me to dig another well unless I get rid of a well. And if I do dig a new well or put a new well down, it can only be the same size as the one that I replaced. And the amount of water that came down in those 10 hours, basically, we worked hard on Sunday night, our staff did, and we pumped down our entire system over to our spray field, where we were only at 800,000 gallons of water in our plant, our wastewater plant. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, I was in town when it really started. And the main drain there at Pine and 90 was not overflowing until 10 o'clock. That's when we reached capacity of our plant and all the pipes that led to it. So we took on 2.2 million gallons and whatever the capacity was in 5 hours. So we saved the town for 5 hours, but that's all we could do at that point. And then after that, that's how fast downtown flooded, was in about 5 hours. So I have a plan to fix this. And I met with the governor and Corey Simon on Wednesday, told him my plan. Kat Kamick and Marco Rubio on Thursday. And everybody agrees with what me and the 2 engineering groups I talked with, what we think we need to do. It's going to cost a lot of money, but I told the governor himself, I said, we're tired of being a redheaded stepchild, and you show up every time there's a problem, and I know you're tired of coming over here. He nodded his head. And the money they spent on Debbie and Adelia and everything else, and what we've got right now on this Debbie, they could fund the infrastructure we need to do what we need to do, because Live Oak is a mini New Orleans. It's a basin, and we have multiple basins within the city. And Mr. Buchanan got me a LiDAR map of everything that I'll go back, and we're going to make a plan on how to interconnect all these basins to figure out where to pump from. And we have a good plan, because I kept hearing, well, we have to wait till the go-away wells burp. You know, that's stupid to me. When you wait, it fills up till there's so much pressure, it finally pushes one in. So I've designed a plan how to put a breather in the casings of these wells. It's simple. These gas cans that we have now that don't have a vent like they used to have the little vent in the actual spout, we put a 2-inch casing down the well on the inside the casing that's threaded, and we know of a big event's coming that may overtop where it goes in. We just screw on another 20-foot stick to breathe, and then that will allow it to go immediately and not have to burp it. That I'm so sick of hearing the word burp from all the local people.
Yeah.
But that's, oh, we gotta wait till it burps. Well, while you're waiting, the whole town floods. So I'm gonna fix that problem, and I'm also gonna get it out of the town with pumps that'll come on. Like we get a 2-inch rain event or something, they kick on and they just start pumping. Because we can get hit by a 2-inch rain event in 40 minutes in Live Oak, and water's, people are drowning their cars out. I mean, it just fills up that quick. So I have a good plan. I just need to have all the support. I think my biggest problem is going to be DEP, and that's what I told Marco Rubio and Kat Kamick, you know. So that's my biggest point of contention. And if you know me well enough, I'll be talking to the head of DEP face to face and tell him, you know, these poor people here that are trying to own homes. I've got a lady right now that wants the city to buy her house because she's flooded. It's not my fault she flooded, it's an act of God. But she's looking to me to replace her house. I can't do that. I can introduce her to, fortunately, we got named a hurricane and not a tropical storm. If it was just a tropical storm, FEMA wouldn't even have showed up. So we got very lucky. We pushed really hard last Thursday in a meeting. Look, it hit the coast as a hurricane. It needs to be a hurricane here. They did that. But we've got lots of problems, you know, and then in Debbie, when downtown had a sinkhole by the courthouse, that changed a lot of drainage. They pumped tons of concrete in where those buildings used to be, that's now a park. So there's no permeation of that. Water's not going away anymore. So you have more water that's rising to the top faster because there's less room underground for it to go away. So there's lots of things have changed. And me being a rookie in this position, this last week was a big eye opener. I learned a lot. But I'm not kicking the can down the road like it's been done the last 80 years. I'm going to get something done. That's my promise to the community. That's all I got to say.
Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
Larry, can I ask you something? Is moving some of that water out of town, would any of that be in conjunction or timing along with that sewer to septic conversion?
Actually,
construction?
where we're working, that part of town right now, we're still pumping water off that part of town. Okay. And both places, on 2nd Street and up on Eva. And the one place that's on the north, I guess you'd call it the northeast side, that would be in conjunction with what I want to do. And we would tie all that in. And then it would go to, in the aquifer from the sinkhole up there that we would want to pump to. And I've got a good relationship with both the landowners. They already agreed with me. We'll work this out. You bring me the water. So I don't have to go through a lot of legal stuff.
Right.
We'll just make an agreement that they'll take X amount of water. We'll have meters on the pumps, and we'll make them a utility that we'll pay for a penny a gallon or whatever we send them. Because my estimation was we got somewhere around 20 million gallons of water just in one little spot in Live Oak. You can't get rid of 20 million gallons of water very fast. But if you got places to put it, and the pumps kick on the minute it gets to a certain level and they start pumping, we need big enough infrastructure to make it happen.
Right.
But if we got big piping to do this, then we never really flood the streets ever again. You know, and that's my goal. Because US 90 was underwater, 129, off of 129, there was over 20 feet above Hillman where we have 2 pump stations and 2 retention ponds. It was 20 feet deep over there. And people's houses and cars, and Fortunately, nobody died. But we gave them time that morning by doing what we did Sunday night to understand it's coming, and daylight happened and they got to get out. The worst thing is when these things happen in the middle of the night. So that's what we did proactively. But I'm very confident that we get the right infrastructure with the governor's help and maybe even Corps of Engineers, that Live Oak shouldn't have any more issues if we do it right. Because I'm tired of seeing it happen. I mean, I've seen it multiple times, and now that I'm in charge, we're going to get it fixed.
It's been long enough.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm
Thank you.
taking so much time.
We've had discussions. I appreciate your willingness to work on that and the city's interest with it.
All right, any other questions for Hugh? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our board meeting. And
Second.
we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Hugh.
What do you say here?
All right, we're going to go ahead and call the Swanee River Water Management District Audit Committee meeting to order, and is available on YouTube link, www.youtube.com/@SRWMD. It's August 13th, 2024, and we're now called to order, and Ms. Pam, you will have the floor. Yes. Oh, roll call. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Johns?
Here.
Mr. Keith?
Here.
Mr. Schwab?
Here.
Mr. Lloyd?
Here.
Mr. Sessions?
Here.
Madam Chair, we have
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, we will go ahead and open for public comment. And I see no public comment. We'll close public comment and move on to our agenda and annual report of District Inspector General Activities for the fiscal year 2023-2024.
Yes, ma'am. So, good morning, members of the Madam Chair and members of the committee. We do have the 3 items for you today. The first 2 are items 3 and 4 are going to be presented by John Ingram, who is our representative of our Inspector General, Law Reg, Corona, and Monroe. And what I will do is I'll present the item. He will give you his report, and then I'll come back and read the recommendation for action to be taken by the committee. And then our final item is the review of the request for proposals that came in for our financial audit auditors. So, Mr. John Ingram, partner with Law Reg, Corona, and Monroe for number 3, which is the annual report for the District Inspector General for fiscal year 23-24.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. As always, a pleasure to be here before you. I'm happy to present to you our annual report of District Inspector General activities for the 23-24 fiscal year. We provide this report pursuant to Section 20055 Florida statutes that provides that Inspector Generals provide an annual recap of their activities. And so I would direct you to page 7 of your materials there, page 3 of the annual report that lists the staff assigned to work on Inspector General activities. And then just an overview of the activities themselves. We conducted a risk assessment, and based on the results of that, prepared an internal audit plan, both a 3-year and a 1-year plan that we brought before you for approval. We'll talk about the 24-25 plan in a few minutes. We performed 3 internal audits and provided some additional services over and above the audits themselves. The 3 audits, there was an internal audit of cybersecurity, as shown on page 3 and on into page 4, focusing on 2 security functions as described in the NIST cybersecurity framework, that is identify and protect. We did note some opportunities for improvement in certain areas, provided specific observations and recommendations to management. Of course, that being a cybersecurity report, the content is confidential. Also, our report number 24 24-02, follow up on district corrective actions regarding prior internal audit findings. The prior finding we followed up on was a cybersecurity matter. We concluded that management reasonably addressed the issue and there's no further follow-up action considered necessary. Third report, 24-03, was an internal audit of cost share agreements. We included both agricultural and river cost share agreements in the scope of the audit. And for those agreements that we looked at, we found that the district maintained documentation demonstrating that selected requirements of governing board directives and district procedures were followed by district staff, and there were no matters for management's attention that were reported. We also provided additional services over and above internal audits, also beyond contract requirements, just ad hoc type things that popped up. There had been a citizen complaint related to district regulatory responsibilities, and Sam McCall, the Inspector General, was consulted with regard to that. There was also an issue related to payments to a vendor, and the management's proposed actions, Sam concurred with, and provided some additional feedback there on that particular matter. The Inspector General, along with management, met with OPAGA to answer some questions and learn about an upcoming statewide evaluation of water management district permits. That OPAGA project is underway, and the district has provided information to OPAGA that they requested at the beginning of their review. And then also, Sam led a workshop addressing the requirements of Section 218.319 Florida statutes related to selection of an internal auditor for the annual audit of the district's financial statements. So those were the activities of the Inspector General, audits and not audit activities for the 23-24 fiscal year. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
So the recommendation is for the committee to accept the annual report of the District Inspector General's activities for the fiscal year 2023-2024 from Law Reg Crona and Monroe.
Make that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried.
Thank you. Our next item is the Inspector General 3-year audit plan for fiscal year 25 to 27 and the fiscal year 2024-25 internal audit work plan. And I think he's going to start with the 1-year plan first.
Actually, if I may, I'd like to start with the 3-year plan, and then we'll see what we've got planned for the 3 years, and then we'll zoom in on the first year, if I may. So I will direct your attention to page 13 of your materials there. This is a proposed 3-year internal audit plan for 2025, 2026, and 2027. The projects that we have listed there, the audit on item 1D there, acquisition and management, was carried forward from last year's approved 3-year plan, and that includes district policies, procedures, and controls for ensuring that various land management objectives are met. We also have other typical things that we do every year, such as following up on prior internal audit findings. And for that year, we also have a planned project for following up on OPAGA findings, if there are any directed towards the district. So that just all depends on the outcome of their review, which of course covers all water management districts' permitting activities. So we would have that to do by law. Section 20055 requires us to follow up on not only Auditor General findings, but also OPAGA findings if they perform a review at the district. So those are our planned activities for 2025. 2026 would include another cybersecurity audit. This is pursuant to our cybersecurity audit plan, which is also included in the three-year plan over on page 15. Again, Section 20055 now requires inspector generals not only to do an audit plan, but also a section of that needs to be a cybersecurity audit plan. And so for 2025, we're going to follow up on progress towards the observations from our last cybersecurity audit that we just completed in May. Then in 2026, we'll pick up on the three remaining functions in the NIST cybersecurity framework: detect, respond, and recover. And so those would be the scope of that cybersecurity audit. And then in 2027, we would perform another follow-up to see progress in addressing any findings that may arise out of that audit. Looking at 2027, we get to the fun part because we have two placeholders there, C and D, topic to be selected. And that's where we ask for your feedback, an opportunity for you to propose topics if there are things giving you heartburn. We have three recommended topics there for your consideration. The top of page 14, competitive selection procurement process, and that would be district purchasing policies and procedures for ensuring compliance with 287 Florida statutes, including the district solicitation and award process. There was a previous internal audit of that, but it's quite a while back ago, 2015-16. Then an audit of performance measures, district performance measurement and reporting pursuant to DEP's performance measures reporting instructions. That was last done in 17-18. Also, an audit of revenues and receipts, controls for ensuring the accuracy and completeness of recorded revenues. We would hold off on proposing which revenue activity to choose to be included in the audit scope to be determined in future audit risk assessments closer to the year in which we would perform that audit, 2017. If it is selected, the last revenue-related internal audit relating to permitting fee receipts was completed in 16-17. So I would entertain your feedback as to which of those topics or others, if you have something in mind for us to include in the 2027 work plan.
Any other suggestions other than the recommendations? And I'm assuming at some point in time before 2027, if there was a particular thing that popped up, that we could switch and change that out, correct?
Yes. This plan can be amended at any time. If something should arise that needs audit attention, we can amend it at any time.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I think the competitive selection procurement process sounds like a very good idea. As much money as we vote on every month, making sure we have enough qualified vendors and that we're handling that as best we can.
Okay. Ms. Pam, do you have a recommendation as well? Or are these three a priority, or I know we always like to get your input.
I'm always open to have the Inspector General come in and look at anything. We're very transparent. So if we haven't done anything on our receipts and revenues since 16, I would certainly recommend that.
Okay. All right, so that would be the competitive selection and the revenue and receipts. Does that sound good to you guys?
Sounds great.
Okay. All right.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on then to the 1 year, the annual audit plan for 2025. Back on page 11 of the materials there, this provides lists those projects that we talked about in the 3-year plan with more detail, plan start dates, estimated hours, total estimated cost for these activities. So land management, land acquisition and management, follow up on prior internal audit findings, follow up on OPAGA findings, if there are any that are directed towards this district, and then other related audit activities. Any questions about our 2025 internal audit plan?
Yes, sir. I know what the AGA would stand for, would probably be Auditor General Audit. What is the OPP?
It's Office of Program, I believe it's Program Performance and Government Accountability.
Okay.
And they are an arm of the legislature, just as the Auditor General is, and they perform projects that are, they're not audits, but they are other types of review projects, including program policy analysis and other effectiveness and efficiency type reviews.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions I could answer?
Questions from the board? Nope. Okay.
So thank you, John. We appreciate that. They do a great job for us. Our inspector generals do. The recommendation is the acceptance of the Inspector General's 3-year audit plan with the addition of the competitive solicitation and revenue and receipts review for 2027 and for fiscal years 2025 through 28 and the fiscal year 2024-25 internal work plan for Law Reg Corona Monroe.
Make that motion, Madam Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, sir.
So our final item this morning is something we've all been working on probably since March. And so here we're come to a climax. So the Independent Financial Audit Services Proposal Review and firm recommendation. I want to thank all the committee members for their diligence and their work through this process. It's what I do want to say is in accordance with Section 218-391 of the Florida statute, the auditor's selection, that's the auditor selection law, it establishes the required procedures for the selection of auditors to perform the financial audit required by this section for special districts. And these procedures are supposed to help ensure that we select a qualified auditor. So on June 14th, 2024, the district, on behalf of the Audit Selection Committee, released an RFP for independent financial audit services for qualified certified public accounting firms. We did receive some questions, and we submitted those answers on July 8th. On July 26th, we did receive 4 responses to our solicitation. They were Carr, Riggs, and Ingram CPAs and Advisors, James Moore and Company, PL, Malden and Jenkins, and Reliant CPAs. So once those came in, the committee members all received copies of the proposals and were given an opportunity to review those and then provide a scoring of each one of those, and their scores were due back up to us by August the 9th. We then compiled those scores, and I wanted to show those responses to you now. So according to the different scores that were submitted, I would like the committee members to review those scores that you're seeing now for the first time to make sure that those were the scores that you did submit. Ms. Johns?
Yes.
Mr. Key?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Schwab?
Yes.
Mr. Sessions?
Yes.
Okay, based on the scores that you did submit, the average score came out to, the award would be for Reliant CPAs, which is Powell and Jones. So our next thing is where we'll be taking this recommendation to the board. If it is your desire to present, Reliant CPA, Powell and Jones to the governing board for the financial audit services contract for the fiscal years of 2025 through 2028 based on the results of the RFP 23-24-019 BCS review.
Make that motion, Madam Chair.
And a second, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you again all for that. The only other comment I have is I did present all the governing boards with the budget, the tentative budget in a hard copy for you.
One comment, as I was speaking with Miss Pam, maybe next time we'll weight these things a little different instead of all exactly the same based on their importance. I think we still did a good job doing it, but Pam told me that, you know, she felt after the fact that maybe we needed to weight them a little different. So next time when we do something like this, we'll look at that a little harder.
Would you put the screen up with the
Scores?
Yep, there you go. I just wanted to make a note. Thank you, ma'am.
If I may, could I just publicly recognize the work that this family did to create the process, get where we are today, and the committee members that had to take the time to review the material and pull this out. Really
Appreciate all the
It was a struggle,
work.
but I
It wa-
I appreciate it. It was really hard for me to
Oh,
make an
dear.
informed decision.
I'll second that. I felt like there were 4 very good options for us, which is always a challenge when you're doing this, that you get enough to choose from. I feel like we had good choices. And obviously they were given very good instructions because I'll admit, I was worried it was going to be a long process to go through all that material. It was very well organized, and once we started going through it, and I think that's the work you guys laid up front, allowed it to be easy to compare those options and come up with a good choice. So thank you.
And I appreciate whatever y'all did to get 4 bidders was very nice to have 4 qualified firms submit a bid on it to be able to look at.
I do appreciate the effort that it took our respondents to put those proposals together because they are pretty extensive.
They very, yes, they are.
It was a nice response.
Yes, ma'am. All right, does that conclude?
And I would add, Madam Chair, I would add that Pam dealt with this while being flooded out of her home from Debbie.
Pam, did you get flooded? So sorry. Is it still flooded?
I don't have a floor and I can't get out of my driveway, so but it's okay. It's all right. Nobody got hurt.
Well, that's good. That's the important
I
thing.
have a picture of her working out of her John boat with her computer on. Thank you.
For sure. All right, Ms. Pam, does that conclude our audit committee then? Information? All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And a second? And we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much.